Good morning. It's June 25th, and I'll call to order the regular meeting for the Klickitat County Commissioners, noting that all three commissioners are present. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So, approval of the business agenda.
Anything to add for my seatmates?
Not really, just the manning the counters for lunch thing that I thought I would ask Aaron during her update, unless you want that done separately on the agenda somewhere. Just didn't get put on.
I thought we said it would just be during their update.
Make sure.
Okay, yeah. Madam Chair, I would make a motion to approve the business agenda as presented.
I'd second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
My pen disappeared again. Good thing I hid some.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for May 28th and June 4th as presented.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes for the meeting minutes. So we are now to public comment. We'll start with the room, and if you'd like to come forward and give your name and where you're from, that helps us keep our records straight. And also on Zoom, we'll call on you, and please state your name and where you're from. Anyone in the room?
We've got Trisha Clark online.
Great. So we'll go to Trisha Clark. Good morning.
I didn't have any comments. Sorry, I didn't sign up.
That's okay. Thank you. Anyone else online? Becky? Did you wish to speak this morning, Becky? I can see your hand up, but we can't hear you. Okay. Oh, she's gone. Anyone else online? We'll give it a couple of minutes online and go out to the room. Is there anybody in the room that would like to give public testimony this morning? Good morning. Back online. Anybody wishing to give public comment this morning? This might be a first.
Hi, online. Can I do that? I can't find the hand up.
Good morning, Gabby.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to address the commissioners. I feel that you did not meet the moment in response to sexism, and the response, in my opinion, was a lot of manure spreading mansplaining. I am not worried about my descendants watching my comments on YouTube. If anything, I would help them find the video. And I hope that their future is enjoyed without a shred of sexism, because women throughout their lifetime have to bob and weave through this kind of language. My question to you is, what kind of policies and ordinances and change in code will you create that is going to lift and support women in this county? The sexism and the misogyny in this county can be found in actions and behaviors presented in this room. Contentious behavior directed at the chairwoman as she presents detailed research and conversations she engages in to inform the board in public. Petty innuendos towards her work, the name calling she absorbs from elected officials who are in the hot seat for in their own making and from their own actions. Sexism and misogyny are parlayed into abuse countywide. This law enforcement has the largest call volume for domestic abuse and assault. And how do commissioners assist domestic abuse survivors to access economic freedom, and how do your policies reflect their strength in getting that economic freedom, especially those with children? The Jerry Springer analogy, this public common space, is a little hypocritical when you consider the sheriff's own town hall on the jail produced propaganda films, F-bomb hysteria, and disrespect and booze that were directed to the mother of one of the victims. My question into the commissioners would be, one, when the sheriff continues to request a special ballot for the jail, the question on the jail, and it's my understanding the county doesn't possess that kind of governance to do so. And if that's the case, if that can be explained. I am clear that the root of misogyny and sexism in this county needs to be dug out from the roots. And it really has to address how women are treated and how women are perceived in this county. And, you have an individual who is working in the sheriff's department who is elevated to a new position. And this individual uses aggressive language towards women.
Thank you, Gabby.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. In the room. Seeing no one back online. Becky, are you there, Becky?
Oh, can you hear me now?
We can.
Oh, gosh, I'm sorry. I was on my phone and I kept hitting the mute button and it was not responding. Well, I was just wondering what your plan is for fireworks this year. I think you guys are in charge of deciding whether or not people can have home fireworks. And am I wrong there? Anyway, there's some of us that are living out in the rural parts of the county that have very few insurance choices anymore. And most of that reason is because of wildfires. And so I'm just really concerned about having any fireworks at all outside of controlled places down on the river. And so I'm just wondering what your plan is for this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Great. In the room. Anybody with public comment this morning? No? Back online. Is there anyone else online this morning? Mr. Rizzi, is that you, Dowsport taxpayer?
Yes, it is.
Great. I see your picture. Great.
There we go. I know that Commissioner Anderson asked for me to email, but to me, emailing you isn't letting the rest of the community know. But the O&M contract for the wastewater in Dowsport was sent to all three of you, or all three at the time. I know Anderson was there when he got a copy of the contract. It was even highlighted that says that the insurance company for KPUD should be billed for KUPD's negligence and not complying with the O&M contract between Klickitat County and the PUD. Now, I mean, it straight up says that in the contract, yet we just put $750,000 back into KPUD for doing a really lousy job and causing all the maintenance problems and what we're going to see in the future. Now, I appreciate you putting money in to get that up to snuff and fix all those things, hopefully not to give it back to KPUD to do what they've been doing for years now, but to rather go ahead and hopefully give it to Dowsport PUD that we're putting together or have put together, because we have the water district and now we want a wastewater district. So we would like to take care of our own area. So that is very clear. And now I look on the agenda, you guys are racing to put together this Department of Corrections. Once again, is going to be wasting a whole lot of money, and we were hoping that you would come out with a cost analysis of what it would cost to leave it the way it is, with the sheriff being overseeing that, where there wasn't any problems, but rather putting into a whole new director, a whole new branch of government, just overspending all of our money for no reason. You guys are just completely off base with wasting all of our taxpayer money. And I'm sorry, you guys really just need to get into that and figure it out. And then let us know before you set up a whole nother government. This is getting to be quite ridiculous. So think about that. I can't wait to hear your replies, but you're just wasting our taxpayer money, and that's just getting to be a real pain. Thank you.
Thank you. Back in the room. Everybody's quiet this morning. Online. Raise your hand and we'll recognize you. Anybody? Seeing no one. We'll wait a couple minutes. Are we going to have a flurry at the last again? No. Anyone else online this morning? If not, we'll move forward and move into our regular meeting. First, we'll ask our commissioners to respond. I'll ask one more time, and then we'll close public comment this morning. I see no one. So if the commission...
I'm unmuted.
Whoops.
2662.
2662?
Yes.
Great. Good morning. Is that you, Tracy?
Good morning. Yes, it is. Yes, it's Tracy from Lyle. And I would like to start today to say thank you to Jacob Anderson. I called him. I actually called all three of you commissioners yesterday, and I know, Lori, you had tried to call me back, and I missed the call. But Jacob did answer, and I thought we had a pretty good talk. I was able to get across a few things that I think were very confusing, and hopefully he will look into that, and maybe we can fix this problem once and for all. So thank you, Jacob, for picking up that call. And Christopher, Dan Christopher, I have called you multiple times over the past 3 months, and I don't know, maybe if it just has been bad timing, but
meeting ID followed by pound.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, because my phone is talking to me about Zoom. Anyway, sorry, but Dan, I just I hope that you're able to see my calls, and I have left messages. So I would like to speak to you about a different subject. If you have a chance, if you could call me, that would be great. And then the other thing that I just wanted to bring up, and I think I brought this up a few weeks ago, is that GeoCom. I know it's on your consent agenda today. It said something about that it's a requirement for emergency management, but I know that, well, at least what GeoCom had told me is that they ended the contract in February, the last day of February of this year. And I wondered why there was a lag, why there was a time period between February and now that, well, if I understand it correctly, that emergency management was not in compliance. The next thing I'd like to bring up is the CenturyLink deregulation hearing. I know that it was brought up, I think, last week. But I hope that you commissioners will look into that. The RCW that, and I don't have that right in front of me, but the RCW that the UDC is using, to let CenturyLink be unregulated. If you go down to the bottom of that RCW, it actually says that June 15th of 2024 is the last day for funding for that program. And the program, if I understand it correctly, is for people with low income to be able to have phone service and that type of thing. And with the landlines being a lot of the ways that people are able to get on the internet, and this big push for, internet for everyone, I don't understand why they would be, stopping that funding or stopping that program. So if you could look into that, that would be appreciated. I know myself, I really appreciate when you guys answer questions or at least acknowledge people. And I think you do a pretty good job of that. And I wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you,
And I
Tracy.
think that's all. Thank you.
Perfect timing. Thank you. Anyone else online this morning? No change of mind out there? No. Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, this is Robert Brown from Dallasport. It's been 7 months since the board unanimously approved the creation of the request for proposal for the Dallasport wastewater treatment plant. I have seen that as of yet, there is no proposal so that we can get on with the bidding process to get hopefully a more competent operator on the O&M in charge of that plant. I was on a tour of that plant about a year or so ago. The operators were unable to identify the discharge manifold and the discharge well locations. That's just one example of the operators' issues with competent operation of the plant. I would hope to see a requirement for proposal expedited so that we can get this process on down the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Anyone else online? Seeing none. Nope, everybody's slow today. Okay, we'll ask one more time and then we'll go ahead and, oh, that does it every time. 0088.
Yeah, I would really appreciate it if you commissioners, all this work that you've done on the jail, if you would update us where you're at and what kind of documents and stuff that you have produced or looked at, or just exactly, you know, how long are you going to be doing this? Because there was a very easy common sense solution, but we got to go through this drama and stretch this out just as long as we can for who knows what reason. But anyway, I think it's time that you update us exactly, whether it's a workshop or whether you have a town hall, what you have got on this so far, how far you've gone, and what your plans are and how long you're going to be wasting time on this issue. I just would be appreciated if you could give us an update. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on Zoom this morning? Seeing none?
I have to make the last call like 4 times.
I know. Last call. Okay, we'll move to commissioner comment if they have comments. Who would like to start today?
I'll go first again.
Okay.
Just the fireworks. So by state law, in order to ban fireworks on any given year, you have to give the fireworks sellers notification a year in advance that they will be banned next year. So there's absolutely nothing we have or can do about banning fireworks this year. We could ban them this year for next year. Technically, we couldn't even do that because by the time we'd have the resolutions and everything drafted and through and final, it would be less than 365 days. So it would technically take 2 years. And that's if this board chose to ban fireworks. Now I live out in the country too, and I get where you're going for with wildfire, but there's far more to the issue of banning fireworks. Previous board has heard testimony on fireworks from fire experts that essentially said if you ban fireworks, people will still light their fireworks. They'll just go somewhere where law enforcement isn't, which is out in the sticks or up in the woods, and have a far greater chance of starting a wildfire than they do currently. That has always resonated with me. And I honestly believe that would be the case. People would still light fireworks. Some of them would go into downtowns and cities. Some of them would still do it. And some of them would go out to campgrounds and whatnot and do it out in the middle of the trees because they're not smart enough to figure out that's a bad idea. So that's the fireworks in a nutshell. Mr. Rizzi, for the time I've sat on this board, I would like to say I haven't wasted any money. I have been very frugal to the point of being cheap, to the point of rubbing nickels together to try to find another nickel, to be accused of, why worry about that? It's only budget dust. Well, budget dust adds up. So I will continue to do what I can do to make sure that we are not wasting money or spending money inappropriately or subsidizing things that shouldn't be subsidized. Dallasport RFP, I am 100% in agreement. I believe this board needs to give the Public Works Director a time frame of when they expect to see that RFP written. Because I believe if this board does not do it, it will not get done, because I believe there is a agenda to not get it done. So if any of the commissioners would like to join with me to set a date on when we expect to see that RFP across our desk, I am more than happy to join with them on that issue. Dell, update on the jail. I hope it sounds like the board has agreed to get weekly or at least bi-weekly updates to us on what's going on. So if it doesn't pop on, I do not see it on today's agenda. So I don't know if they plan on just popping in and putting it on the agenda, or if it doesn't come in today, hopefully it will be on for next week so we can all get an update on where the process is. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Gabrielle, thank you for your comments as always. And thank you for also pointing out that we all need to do better at the words that we choose with regards to how people will take those comments. And make sure that we note to ourselves that when we speak, we're not trying to create innuendo. We're not trying to create accusations. We're not trying to talk about other professionals and their professional careers. And it needs to come from both the Board of County Commissioners as well as the public when you're giving testimony and comments. Ms. Miles, Commissioner Christopher was correct. That RCW is RCW 7077 period 250 paragraph 4, and it requires 1 year. Commissioner Christopher is also correct that that ordinance, when it's created, you have to give 365 days, which we couldn't do before July 4th this year. So the soonest it could be implemented is for 2026. And you can create an ordinance which allows for emergency fireworks bans that need to be given to someone of competent nature, like a fire marshal, which is something we have none of in Klickitat County. So it's a little more complex than one would assume, and we do hear it every year. And with regards to the wasting of money, and again, Mr. Rizzi, the $750,000 that we've spent is capital project costs. Those capital project costs are at the time of that clarifier needing rebuilt, and that is regular maintenance. Insurance does not cover regular maintenance. Doesn't on any of my vehicles or anything else. So I don't know why insurance would pay for something that is designed to be rebuilt after 20 years. We just know that the wastewater system is coming up on 20 years, of which that first 20 years was paid for primarily with grants and county dollars and not by the locals and the people that are using the system. And that heavy maintenance and capital expenses have to occur, and they need to occur on a regular basis to keep that thing maintained and operating, which, as far as I understand, the wastewater system has not had major issues where it's been down for long periods of time. Mr. Brown, I will bring up the comment about the RFP in the department update, which is the appropriate place. And Mr. Eldred, I heard this morning that the consultant, jail expert from the insurance pool has been on site this last week, multiple days. And so hopefully we will get information from him sooner rather than later. And we're also got on the agenda for today to create the department. So we are continuing to move forward as the motion was made. And staff is doing that. And I believe we should be getting an update, possibly not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after from staff. With that, I'll let you finish it up.
Gabrielle, thank you always for your time and your insight. You are right. It is this board that I believe sets the tone for our county, and we need to do a better job. And I knew that coming in. Going forward, we'll continue to work on that. Unfortunately for me, I think it's society at large has this problem these days of being cruel and just rude to each other. And it's not the way I was raised, and I don't believe it's the way most of the people in this county were raised. And so we need to just do a little bit of correction and become better people. We'll keep working on it. And thank you, Gabby. The special ballot, we did receive some information from our auditor, and looking through that, we'll let you know what that comes out, how that works out on whether we can do a special ballot or how that works. And I have not read enough of that to talk qualified on that to you yet. Becky, fireworks are a problem. And I did get calls this week, especially since Wasco County made a move to stop fireworks in their county. I agree with my seatmates. It's a project we're going to have to take on and work our way through. So I want you to know going forward, I have a packet and we'll keep it on our agenda. And it sounds like it takes a long time to get it enacted. So we need to get on it so that we know where we're going in the future. Mr. Rizzi and Mr. Brown, in regards to the wastewater treatment plant, Public Works is on a time frame, and they did do the draft RFP. Right now, we found out that to do our due diligence, we have to have that thing in good shape before we try to pass it to someone else. And so I think you understand that there was money allotted, and we're working through those normal maintenance things that we have to do before we can put out the RFP and push that off to someone else. It wouldn't be responsible. And I'd ask you also to talk with Scott Dixon and Mark Peppel. I believe the Dallasport Water District asked Department of Ecology to come in and do inspections because they felt like there were things wrong. I know Department of Ecology spent 2 days reviewing that plant, and they did put out a letter that should be available to you that said Department of Ecology found nothing wrong with the plant or the usual maintenance of the plant. And I don't believe we've ever been issued a out of compliance order from DOE on that plant. This is all kind of normal process as usual. And if you'd ask for that, I think you'll see where DOE feels like who has oversight over that plant actually. So I was pleased to get that back from them. And thank you to Dallasport Water District for asking for that review. Tracy, thank you for reaching out. And yes, I did try once and then I didn't get back to you. My day got away from me. But I heard in your message you talked to Jake, so I felt confident that you had reached out and gotten the answers that you needed. And we did do a name correction for you today too. And due diligence on the jail. Yes, Mr. Van Cleve does an update every week with us, and he has committed to do an update every week on the jail if there's progress or what he needs to report. And I believe he'll be with us today with an update on the jail. So that's it. So we will move to consent agenda.
Question, can I?
Okay.
Are you sure Mr. Van Cleve's coming in? And if
Yeah.
so, do we know what time? So anybody wanting to know that can tune in? Board pending. Which is probably around 1:30-ish. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, as long as the public kind of gets an idea on when that is.
perfect.
Hey, look at that. I was wondering what that noise was. It was my phone rattling on the speaker. My brush cutter's done and ready for pickup at the maintenance place. I apologize.
Madam Chair, I would make, go ahead.
Before we get into agenda, I would ask that item number 3 be pulled and voted on separately. There's some language changes that I would like to discuss.
Okay. Madam Chair, I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda with 11 items, noting that item number 3 will be discussed after.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consent agenda passes.
Item number 3 is the resolution to declare the corrections department. I just have a problem with one line that was put in there at the one of the later paragraphs that says the trying to not have to read the whole thing. That the transfer of operation of the Klickitat County Jail and its staff from the Klickitat County Sheriff to the Klickitat County Board of Commissioners. But then it also says, and the board essentially concludes doing so is in the public's best interest. I'm asking if you want my vote, you're going to need to remove and concludes doing so is in the public's best interest. And I did not prepare copies for everybody, but I'll hand it down so you can take a look. So I'm just saying the only way I can, in good faith, sign that is if that is removed, because I do not believe it is in the public's best interest.
So I go through each section is called.
Richard, your mic is hot.
Yes, friends.
What are your thoughts, Madam Chair?
Has this had PA review? I believe already for content.
It's I'm not seeing.
It's just one question.
It's not attached. Usually there's an email that shows that there's PA review.
Okay.
So why don't we table it until we can get an answer? You can send an email to Rob.
Yep,
Okay, see, there you go. Shall we move on until we get an answer?
Sure.
Payroll benefit warrants. Madam Chair, I move that we pay the accounts payable warrants in the amount of $249,918.40. And the payroll benefit warrants in the amount of $1,093,755.31 for the date ending June 24th, 2024.
I will second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. So we are at that time for our planning update from Director Scott Edelman. Good morning.
Understand on my watch, in my absence from my watch, last week, an item or two disappeared.
Oh, I thought you were handing me the little baton there. It's Olympic season. I'm getting ready to run.
An item or two
Isn't
may have
it an award?
disappeared from here, so I'm making up for it.
You're so nice.
The paper itself is just a wrap.
Oh, so funny. Thank you.
I don't know that I can accept that. I'll have to.
Thank you for letting me delay. Thank you for letting me delay a week. I was sick last week. Sometimes I think your body tells you when you need a break, and I think my body kind of did that. It's been going hard recently. I did get a citizen email Debbie with concerns over my health and when I'd be back, and I just want to appreciate that citizen. I want to say thank you. Also, just a quick note on society, because we do see a lot more loud voices than I have ever in my past. Angry voices, some righteously angry for good reasons, but maybe don't always present themselves the right way. Some do present themselves. Others just angry because society is treating each other different. But I still see much more good than bad. You know, if you look at our front counter, just one small example, my dad would lose his mind if he was in this spot, but you come to the counter, you pay your building permit fee with your credit card. They say, oh, there's a $63 planning fee. Oh, I'll add it to it. Nope, you have to pay them. Oh, okay, we'll pay them. Here's my credit card. Sorry, we don't take credit cards. Well, they do. They're right next door. Sorry, we don't. Okay, I have $100 bill. Sorry, we don't give cash. That's when my dad would lose it, no matter what kind of mood he is in. I might lose it too. But, you know, even that situation, so many people shrug it off and keep moving. And we get that a lot. We get a lot of very nice people. It's a small number that, as you know, take up a lot of the mental angst that we deal with. So I just want to say that from our perspective, dealing with the public on a regular basis. To my report.
Can I pause you
yeah.
there? Is there plans or is there ability to change policy to be able to accept credit card?
We need to. 100% we need to. I've talked to Greg Gallagher.
Is that something we can work towards?
Yeah, Greg Gallagher and I have had a conversation a while ago now, but he seemed open to it, and we need to move toward it. In my opinion, we need to do the exact same thing the building does, make it as simple as possible. So we need to. That's on the to-do list, and
Thank you, sir. I very much appreciate
that concerned me right away. That was a struggle that people have to deal with when they come to our counter. And like I said, I understand why people be angry. I mean, if everything else goes smooth, that alone would be enough to set some people off. Board of Adjustments, as you know, they denied the Smith RV Park. We get all indications they'll likely be appealing that to Superior Court. So that you won't be dealing with that, but that's likely coming down the road. It's a busy Board of Adjustments season. As you see, July 1st, the Soderbow and Wine Tasting Room, which I don't anticipate being controversial, but you never know, because there are other similar facilities in the area. August 5th is a proposal for 3 single-family dwellings for long-term rentals in a tourist commercial zone, which maybe isn't as much of a fit. So we'll see how that goes. That's short-term would fit the tourist commercial zone, but it's a bit different. So I think we're starting to see some of these that we're getting more information as we go. As approvals conditional uses are denied or approved, we can provide better information to the public as they decide on their own risk if they want to take those when it's not something specifically listed. Planning Commission's been busy. June 17th, they recommend approval of the Wilson Monroe rezone. I won't say much more than that. It's coming to you for final approval, along with the SEPA appeal from the Snowden Community Council. We don't have a date for that yet, but we'll be working on that. And we'll be meeting with the PA shortly on the process, because I think this might be the first SEPA appeal that's come through since the new rules went into place. So we're just wanting to make sure we follow procedure correctly. July 15th, we're going to hammer down on the critical areas ordinance. I'm hoping we can get through the final chapters. The commission, we tried to schedule an interim meeting that fell apart because of summer. Just couldn't get enough commissioners to be able to make it, so we had to postpone that. My goal is to finish through those last chapters, get a draft out to state agencies for a courtesy review, not the formal one. And then August 18th, hopefully do a draft where they're looking at it and finalizing the draft that we're going to put forward for formal state agency review, which is a 60-day period. So that's those are the target dates I'm looking at, all based, of course, on getting through everything. I'm hoping on July 15th, which isn't guaranteed, but planning commission has been dedicated to it. Comprehensive plan is solar ordinance. This is an opportunity we have to move forward with it. We're still looking into feasibility. We have been awarded the grant, as you know, $350,000. We proposed it over 2 years. We're still looking at staff capacity, cross-department workload, potentially using consultants as necessary through it, how to balance that. I wanted to ask you what type of updates as we're going through the contract negotiations. That's the next stage, is to negotiate the contract, negotiating the scope of work, and ultimately deciding if we want to accept it. I was thinking it might be worth a weekly update just on that topic alone. I didn't know if you'd want to have a workshop to discuss it, but at a minimum, I'd like to come forth with something next week. Just a plan to run by you and get some input from you. It could, and I don't know what's all going to be. I just got some information that hadn't been forwarded to me from Commissioner Zoller. I'm glad you sent that to me because I hadn't received the kind of the welcome packet, which told you what we need to do. So I'm going to work on that information. And there'll be a lot of input to get as far as public input, process, what we may or may not use consultants for. There's just a lot of details to still work out. So I'll ask you, you can answer now, or we can talk later about how you would like to be involved in creating that, and or at least being updated on it.
Well, for me, as often as you're sitting here, if that's every week, fine. If it's every 2 weeks, that's fine too.
Okay, that would be every 2
Just
weeks.
kind of update, and I'm good to go. We can kind of chat about it, and if one of us sees a red flag, we'll either chat about it longer or put it as an actual item to talk about on the agenda with however much time that person thinks it needs.
Okay.
I don't think we need to add a whole new workshop. I think you can do it on Tuesdays.
Okay, terrific.
Usually time in the afternoons.
And if something comes up immediate, I can contact Commissioner Zoller, or what I often do is I'll email and blind copy each of you. And then if you have concerns, you can decide how you want to handle that. Blind copy just so that you're not having a discussion among each other, just for the public. So doesn't sound funny to say blind copy. Staffing discussion with this project. If we do move forward, it's going to take a lot of my time, particularly. It'll take some others. We have Harper Houff, Peterson Regelis under contract now. Thank you for that from last week. That'll be very helpful. That will provide a senior level planner type of service once we get rolling. There are some, I had a meeting just yesterday, a phone meeting, and there's a number of steps to get used to each other and comfortable. I think it's going to be a really valuable relationship. And so when we look at capacity of the current department, we're there, or I would say beyond, just based on the backlog of projects we're still catching up on. Everyone in staff is working hard and doing excellent in their role. But they're very busy. I'll just throw Rebecca out there as an example. In my last job in Jefferson County, Oregon, we would trace back all of our permitting back to 2007 when we had record of it on electronic files. And we averaged 0 to 4, what would you call short plats per year. We called them partitions, minor partitions, usually with an average of 2. Right now, Rebecca has 26 active on her desk with 5 applications in. So just the volume of activity that happens here in a non-GMA county compared to a heavily planned county in Oregon where they protect farm and forest land to a very extreme extent. It's a lot of work. So one person is just doing that pretty much, which is an issue for me because Rebecca's very interested in expanding her knowledge in other areas. And so I'd like to take some of that offer. It'd be nice to frankly have another staff person at some point. I know we're having difficult budget times, but it might be a discussion coming up with the budget time. Do we want to rely more heavily on a consultant for the next 2 years? Or do we want to take that time to rely on a consultant partly, but also consider taking on additional staff, knowing that Denise has made it public that she will be retiring at some point in the future. We don't know how soon it is. Fortunately, with her schedule changes, we're going to keep her longer than maybe initially anticipated. But that's a discussion for the budget time. And I know it's a tough budget, so it might be a tough decision. But we're either going to have to rely a little more heavily on the consultant or start transitioning to more staff and another staff person. Other current priorities you see there, I don't really have anything to say about those other than the James Dean. Well, that's all I'll say for now. We're working with James Dean because that one's been sitting there for so long. I want to keep moving forward on that one. Northwestern Lakes Cabin, I'll mention, that's been passed back to the applicants because there is a dispute among boundaries that we've asked that they resolve before we move forward. But I feel like once that's done, I think that there's a path forward. Skamania County is going ahead and moving forward with their side of that project. So they'll provide a good, I think, framework for us to look at it ourselves. That's all I think I have, unless you have any questions for me. And it's nice to be back, by the way.
We had spent 2 years looking for a long-range planner. And it was a position that we had funded in prior years and we ended up giving up after
Mhm.
2 years and no applicants. We aren't in the same financial situation now as we were then, especially, the planning department doesn't cover its own costs.
Right.
And even the building department, I don't think is covering its own costs right now. So it's going to be, yeah, let's have that discussion during the budget time, but yeah.
Thank you. And I'm aware of that. And we are ready to do what we need to, whether it's tightening our belts. And I think, Denise Gunder's schedule helps a little bit. If we just got to bear down and know that the public has been patient so far and hope that they continue to be as we get through things as quick as we can. But I saw that as an opportunity as much as, I always forget the word, but when you're planning for the next person, for the person to follow Denise, I'd love to have that person trained by Denise, trained in all aspects of what they do. So, and then which then maybe free up Rebecca to get trained in more aspects so that we have people we have a lot of channelization where people are doing one thing and doing it extremely well. I'd like more of us to be doing more things and spreading it out a little bit.
And that is in other departments, something that we have done is when we know there is a retirement and there's a retirement date, we try to bring someone on 30, 60 or 90 days beforehand so they can get some cross training.
And we don't
that's
have
something
that.
I've always been supportive.
And hope that's a long ways away because Denise does a great job for us. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Scott. I just saw him go down the hallway that way.
I have a quickie in Commissioner miscellaneous reports and comments, if you're ready for that.
Sure.
I'm assuming you haven't met with the PUD over the landfill gas grants yet.
No,
Okay.
they were gathering some information from Public Works and he had to be gone for a week.
I would ask that when you go through those negotiations, I'm sure they're going to have projects too. I would ask that you only approve projects, both ours and theirs, for the current cycle and not approve projects for next year, which is done in the past. And I kind of find that bad form because it leaves whoever's sitting in your seat next year no ability to negotiate. So that's all I have to say.
Perfect.
Thank you for listening.
Sure. I think you're up. Did you? I seen you tried to sit in the back.
What are we doing here now?
Department of Corrections, did we get PA approval? Did we send that through PA?
We don't normally get PA approval on a resolution.
Okay.
And it was at, I didn't hear it directly, but I think you had a concern within the public's best interest.
Mhm.
And I should have caught that. That wasn't an insult to the sheriffs. That was off the template from Benton County.
I figured it came off a template from somebody else and you just copied and pasted and
Yeah.
changed Benton to Klickitat.
I changed parts of it, but I didn't change that part. So if it's your wish, I can revise that for this afternoon.
If the board wants, that's kind of where I'm at. If the board wants my signature, that
Let me
needs
read
to
it
be
one more
stricken. And if you want to keep that in there, then I can't sign it.
So I see it as the whereas is talking about the motion, and in the motion, we didn't make that statement. So I don't see how we could have that in it where that whereas is for that statement. I mean, it's implied that everything we do is.
So it's just in the public's bench that.
Yep.
You hand him that.
You can
I
take
have
that
that
one.
little tiny section highlighted. If that's removed, I'm
Otherwise, perfect.
willing to sign.
Okay.
Thank you. And I understand mistakes happen as we're very busy and so.
And again, it wasn't intended as an
Right,
insult to the
that they
sheriff.
said is a mistake, so.
So you want a period after commissioners. And then you just remove the words and concludes doing so as in the public's
Yep.
best interest.
And I think just in terms of the PA, this is verbatim except for that last whereas from Benton County. So it went through their process, but typically for resolutions, we don't. When we
yeah.
created the one at the end of the hall, we didn't send it through the PA's office.
No.
Okay.
So, but I'll make that change and bring it back.
Thank you, sir.
Would you like to make a motion? Mr. Christopher, and then we can have it for signature later.
I don't care. We can just get it back later and do it too. It's fine. If you want to make a motion, yeah.
Yeah, I can make it.
I mean, I don't have the copy in front of me anymore. It left the room. So if you've got the copy in front of you.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion approving the resolution in the matter formally creating a Department of Corrections as provided for under RCW 7048-090, paren 4, to be known as the Klickitat County Corrections Department, with the change under the whereas number 6, removing everything after the word commissioners, the words "and concludes doing so is in the public's best interest."
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
My only discussion is that to be careful here. I guess I'll say I find it unfortunate that we are where we are. But we need to move forward. So I will leave it at that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Anything else for commissioners' miscellaneous reports and updates? We have just a few minutes before Public Works.
Oh, I can tell you that I will be sitting in a dunk tank during community days, so
I saw that.
get your money out. And
Bravo.
they were talking about charging double for the balls when I'm sitting in the tank, and more if you want to throw them directly at me. But it's there for a good cause, so come get me wet and help the community out.
What's the weather report?
I don't know, gonna be cold, because I was hoping to get the fire hall to fill the dunk tank the night before and then put in I was
Yeah,
gonna
you're
jury
gonna
rig.
cheat.
I was gonna jury rig a tank heater, a livestock tank heater, to work in regular temperature and warm that water up. But now we're talking through the insurance company that we can't fill the tank up the night before because some kid might come play in it. So we won't be able to put water in it until the morning of. So yeah, my guess is it's gonna be cold.
Well, I'm just glad you're not gonna electrocute yourself with a stock water tank heater.
Oh, I would put no. I'm smart enough to put the tank heater in the night before, but take it out before I go in the pool. And cows don't get electrocuted with a stock tank heater in their water tank. So, but I would still have taken it out and disconnected it.
So when is this?
Community days.
You know the dates?
It's the weekend after 4th of July.
Okay.
So I believe 4th of July is on Thursday and Community Days is Saturday. And they've changed it around apparently. It used to be a lot of it up on the street up there, and then that's completely taken over by car show. And they're moving vendory people back to the courthouse lawn. The dunk tank will be back by the general store behind the backside of the car show.
Glad to know where to find you.
Well, I'll be walking back and forth because I'll be over here at the courthouse as well. So, but I'll be in the tank at least twice.
For tomorrow's meeting, are both of you planning on going up to Yakima?
I don't.
Or you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. And I had talked to them and I'm not attending. Remember we talked?
I knew you're not attending the tour, but I'm talking about the actual meeting,
The
general
membership
membership
meeting.
meeting.
I was can you Zoom it?
You can Zoom
I
it.
will probably Zoom.
Okay, and you're gonna Zoom as well, or you?
Plan.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. I don't want to waste a bunch of money driving to Yakima to say yay or nay on a motion that I pretty much said yay or nay on last November, and was one of two that said nay. So I don't know that my nay is going to be a big difference this time. So
It's a little different language this time, though.
Are we ready for Public Works? Anything else for you, Jake?
I'm just adding that for when we adjourn the note that all three of us will be
Okay.
present.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Update from Public Works, Director Jeff Hunter and Seth Scorola.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Love Seth. He's the picture guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that looks good.
Wow.
That just looks too fancy going out.
I was
through
gonna
there,
say,
doesn't
this
it?
looks,
Yeah, very impressive. Yeah,
Turned out nice.
yeah.
Oh, yes, paving, yeah. Yes. Look how nice that is. It's like a new street.
I know, give it 2 months, they'll complain about another road though.
Well, boy, that's
It's absolutely beautiful. That is
Look like you could rollerblade on that.
that is
Good.
some sexy asphalt right there, brother.
yes.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, I guess we're ready. We went through the consent. I assume I had other issues to deal with, so I didn't hear if we went through the consent agenda or not, but I assume we did because nobody told me we didn't. So, and we don't have any payments this time. We did that last time. So with that, we'll go right into the construction program.
All right, Bickleton area paving, which are the pictures I provided, all the paving has been completed and shoulder rock placed, so only placement of signs and pavement markings is remaining, so that should be buttoned up pretty quick. Sundale Old Highway 8, contractors still working on excavation embankments as they will be for a while. And white plastic edge lines, this is the project that was delayed last year till weather. Looks like we're scheduled to get that done starting July 8th. See, on the road design, Sunnyside Road overlay, we're still working with coordination with utility companies and the design. Bridge repair bundles, the consultant has begun the design of these projects. The Bickleton overlay Box Springs vicinity paving project paperwork has been reviewed by WashDOT. We're waiting to get that submitted, so you guys should be seeing that paperwork here in the next few weeks for signature. White plastic edge lines and curve warning signs, those projects are being started, the design phase. And the road safety plan update, we're getting an RFQ together for a consultant to get that safety plan updated. That's all.
Okay, on the maintenance side in Bickleton, we're grading, patching, and spot graveling on Pine Creek. Just a little bit of spot graveling on Pine Creek. The road is passable from what I've heard by vehicle. We will not go out there and grade right now due to, because we're close to Yakima and we don't want to be in the same situation as Yakima can be. So, but we will spot in some gravel there. On West End, we're patching Centerville Highway, Canyon Road, and Klickitat, Appleton area. On the upcoming facilities, the roof at the new sale barn is 2/3 complete. They're working ahead on that. Superior Court, we're putting in ballistic paneling and other paneling as we get a chance when there's breaks in court. On the events, the demo derby is starting, their event setup actually starts on the 2nd. They did bring in some bleachers. We worked with them to do that. Fuel Island, we're, like we said, 90%. We've reviewed plans and gave them back comments. Trout Lake Park, the first phase of that grant maintenance, our maintenance grant is scheduled to start this week. And grandstands, improvement, seatings, and ramp are complete. Handrails will be complete next week prior to the 4th of July. Then after the 4th of July, we will start working on covering the beer garden bleachers. Other follow-up events, Community Days is coming, and it is the weekend after the 4th. We will send out an email again on this at the end of this week, telling all the departments to please move their vehicles out of these parking lots, the courthouse and the parking lots here, because they use those for community days, set them down at the old Annex 1 parking lot, and we will give a follow-up on Wednesday to let them know, because Friday they start setting up. Just so you're aware, we are working with Avangrid with their Juniper Canyon repower. And again, so people are aware of the cost of these things to the county taxpayers, especially if we were footing the bill. It's our estimate to Avangrid for our cost to review and get through their road haul is $150,000. They are required to pick up the whole 100% of that. That's our
And
consultant.
that's just to go through the road haul. Wow.
That's not the auxiliary work behind there. But again, you're looking at a project that's probably in excess of $200 million, because they're changing out 52 towers, new blades and new nacelles, and new tops.
New depreciation.
Exactly. But again, that was all part of our new Title 12, which is, thank you again. I'm glad we got that in, because we were able to charge them. In the past, it was tied to SEPA, and they are not going through SEPA. But we are, this way we get our stuff and we make sure the roads are taken care of before they start. And I think that's all we have.
I have one thing, if I may. Let's talk turkey.
Okay.
I mean, real gobble gobble turkeys.
Oh.
Received a lot of complaints in the High Prairie Fire Hall, Old Fire Hall vicinity about animal crossings, speeding cars, mainly turkeys, also deer, speed limit changes. I explained the whole rationale. They would like to see at least some animal crossing, or I think turkey crossing would be better than a deer crossing, because people look for a big deer and then next thing you know, there's turkey. Something in that vicinity to try to get people to pay attention is what they're requesting. I hope it isn't a huge expense if we were to make those citizens happy with a sign. But I'm just bringing it up to see what the protocol, or what the situation, or how does that work?
We'll have to do some research. I'll be honest with you. Years ago, it wasn't advisable to put deer crossing, even though you see them, deer crossing and turkey crossing and duck crossing signs, even though people do it, because so we'll have to see. The MUTCD's changed quite a bit, so we'll look into it and see what we can do. Because the ideal is okay, you put a sign here and then the deer runs out 10 or a quarter mile down the road, and then they hit them. What kind of liability do we have?
Right. I know there was that one section through High Prairie that was like a little canyon, well, a little draw. And I swear to God, every time I drive down the road, there was 800 turkey on the road right there.
I know,
it's literally blind field, just boom. There. And then the property ownership must have changed at this other location that I'm talking about. And they put hog panels, you might say, all the way along their fence line. So I never see a turkey there now. They've all moved to the next property over.
Yes.
Which, at least that one's flat. You can see the turkeys without blind corner. The High Prairie area right there by that fire hall's not so.
Now there's a lot of turkeys up there on Centerville Highway. There's a lot of turkeys.
And that's kind of, I understand deer crossing signs and everybody sees a million of them and they don't pay attention to them. That's why I was thinking if there was something that was a smaller animal, they might be paying attention. But then people are always looking in the road when technically they should be looking in the ditch, because it's going to jump in the road right before you get there. So I don't know what we can do. I just told them that I would bring it to your attention and get some ideas from you on what we may or may not be able to do down there.
We'll definitely take a look at it and get back to it.
I'm going to guess that we're either going to put a sign up or it will be you guys called to be burying all the carcasses because they're tired of burying them.
I mean, we'll look at that. We'll also look at, see what our ditches look like in areas, because sometimes you brush back, makes it more visible for people to see the turkeys.
Okay.
I mean, we could do a combination of that.
And this, and all the complaints I got essentially were both sides of the old fire hall.
Yes, there's a ton of turkeys there.
Anyway, thank you.
Good Thanksgiving place.
It's right next to Thanksgiving Road. No, it's not. But,
Yes.
I'm good.
Okay.
Came up during public comment today where we're at on the RFP for the wastewater treatment plant. Do you want to give us an update?
Well, we're still kind of, we need to sit down and have a workshop on what our ultimate goal of the RFP is. Because you're going to spend a lot of money creating an RFP. Because we got to, I got to bring in a consultant to help write it. And at the same time, I mean, we need a scoring panel that can be considered non-biased. However, where do you want to go with your RFP? Are you looking for a management group? Or are you looking for an ownership group? It's considerably different. And your ownership group is a very limited group, where your management group can be a little broader, but then again, it goes back to the responsibility of the taxpayers of this county. So ultimately, and soon as you do that, you kick that off, which is fine. I'm just giving you the heads up on this. Now we better come up with a way to make those improvements. The $2 million improvements. So now you're looking at, if just for instance, if that's what we want to do, and we want to farm it to somebody else, regardless of who it is, it's separate, maybe it's PUD, or if it's Dallasport Water District, or it's a third party, now you're going to be on the hook for that treatment plant for another 10 to 20 years, depending on what your loans go in. So I think it's more of a discussion that needs to be, that's my recommendation. I do want to give you, because I keep hearing this, and I want to make sure the board is aware that yes, DOE was called. Somebody submitted a bunch of complaints. DOE went out and sent 2 inspectors out there. And this is their follow-up report.
Thank you.
can we schedule you for next Tuesday afternoon or something different than your normal update for a half an hour to discuss this RFP process? And
You guys are the boss. We'll be more than happy.
okay. I can't imagine it's more than half an hour.
It shouldn't be that.
Yeah, 15 minutes maybe, but half an hour max. If we can throw that on the agenda for next. Well, I will ask the chair if we can throw it on the agenda.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for this too.
Mm-hmm.
Has this been distributed publicly to the public people?
They have not asked for it. They may have gotten a copy. I do not know. They know because some of the people filled this one out.
Get a copy.
And so I don't know. I mean, we can
share.
always, I can send it, reach out to.
Let's go ahead and send it to them just in the spirit of.
We will do
good
that,
faith and
yes.
transparency, so that we're not accused of hiding something.
No, we will do that.
They see it at the same time I see it, so.
We will do that, yes. Just so the board knows, we have been working with the communities. I was down in Dallasport last week, meeting with the people on what we can do there, low cost and maintenance, and working with them. We're also been working with Wishram. We're going to deliver their flags and give that a shot during the 4th. They have to raise and lower them if there's some raising and lowering involved. We have a flag or a light so it can stay on. It's just when they go to half mast. But so we're working with a group there also.
Is the light on the pole or is the light separate shining towards?
Light is separate, shining towards the pole.
We did the light on the pole, but it created like a kite effect and like ripped off.
Another thing that came up during public comment was the $750,000 that we're spending on the wastewater treatment plant. The question is why are we not billing the insurance of the PUD for that? And I tried to make a statement, but if you'd like to add to that.
Well,
Before you do, if I can clarify, I think it is my understanding, and the Dallasport contingent down there can correct me if I'm wrong, that they're interpreting the reason for the expense is not maintenance, it's neglect. So under the contract, neglect has to be turned into their insurance company. Maintenance is not, and that's the difference of interpretation that's happening with that. So
I believe
that's
this
where we'll
kind
leave
of
it.
dispels.
This will dispel a
Yes.
lot of that, but, and I think Commissioner Anderson made a good synopsis. Your answer is 100% correct. It's no different if your water pump goes out in your vehicle at 300,000 miles. It's past life use. You don't turn it into your insurance company. Well, you can try, or your roof on your house. Matter of fact, I could speak, as being somebody that my wife tried that. It turned in our roof to the insurance company and said, our roof needed, they came out, they looked at it, they go, well, yeah, it's 20 years old. It needs to be replaced. We don't pay for that. The clarifier is 20 years old. It needs to be rebuilt. And no insurance company is going to pay for that. It's end of life. And that's where we are with a lot of that stuff. So it doesn't matter who's running it. There's still that 200 million or that $2 million, 2.5 million that needs to be done soon. And then another 3 million out there that needs to be done. That's just end of life times that needs to be a bigger discussion on how that is handled in the future.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that staff was on the same page, that I wasn't saying something that we all didn't agree with.
Nope.
In regards to the discussion on RFP next week, we currently have a maintenance agreement, do we not? Could you bring that along with you? I
Yes.
have some items in that I'd like to.
Okay.
To bring
and
that to
anything else
discuss.
you'd like, let me know.
Okay, that's great. And who did you want those be sent to?
I would just send them to whatever email that you had of that Dallasport Water District.
Do you have
They can
email?
share them amongst themselves.
Well, I'll probably give them to Rizzy.
That works too. City council or
the community council and the water district.
Yeah.
I can say it's more of that community, whatever they call it. But they disbanded that. That's right. They formed that community, whatever.
Yes,
and
I
then
don't remember what it's called.
Deliberative Assembly.
Yes.
And then they disbanded that. So, but it's all the same players. So as long as those players get a copy, they can share it amongst themselves.
Right. No, I think it's good. We'll make sure it gets to.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
So economic development update. Richard Foster. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Go ahead and kick it.
Right, we'll do natural resources first. I guess I can, or we can go over the letter I gave you first. I'll just hit that first. I was contacted by David Lindley. You're familiar with Mr. Lindley, Commissioner Anderson, but for Commissioner Zoller and Commissioner Christopher, he was the gentleman who was here with Margaret Newman to talk about the Snyder Creek project a couple of weeks ago. Yakima Nation reached out to the department asking for a letter of support for their WWRP, Washington Wildlife and Recreation Program. Through the Recreation and Conservation Office, their funding request for part of their combined acquisition on the lower White Salmon River, which is part of it was funded in the last surfboard round from the Klickitat lead entity. It was an acquisition of the mouth of the White Salmon River, 3.3 miles up the river, And then there's some additional acquisitions tacked on to that, which is part of this project that they're asking for a letter of support from. So we just wanted to get that letter before the board and see what they thought about it, if the language was all right, and we would go ahead and get it by the board next week for signature. It was also stated by David Lindley and Yakima Nation that a lack of objection would also be sufficient in the language of the letter, rather than statement. And I'd also be remiss to not add that along with the acquisition that was funded by the Klickitat lead entity a couple years ago, it was stated by Yakima Nation that they would not restrict recreational access to their portion of the white salmon that they acquired. And then additionally, if you're doing any project through the Washington Wildlife and Recreation Program through an RCO grant, part of those acquisition requirements are also, I want to say, public use. And I'm not entirely sure if those rules are the same, if a tribal entity is acquiring, a parcel through an RCO grant. But I know for, let's say the county were to do that, there would have to be like some standards of public use that were required to get that grant.
I have no problem with the letter if you're looking for answers.
Yeah, I'm fine with it as well.
Cool. Y'all see it next week.
I mean, he's just sitting there like, somebody say something. So I'm like, all right.
I'll just go in reverse order then.
Is there a reason why we put lack of objection rather than?
Oh, I just didn't know how y'all would like it. I can remove that. We're perfectly cool. We can just have support.
I mean,
I would prefer it with support.
Yeah.
You just want it with support and take out the, okay.
I'm fine with that as well. I think it's more, I think it's far more professional and more, shows a little more willingness to be a partner.
I don't disagree.
As opposed to a roadblock or an objection all the time, which would be nice.
Yes, sir.
Good point.
Additionally, we met with the Goldendale Park Plan Committee last night, making really good progress. 4 parts of the plan: an inventory, what we have, what we need, what we wish to improve, public outreach, synthesizing those 2 phases, and then like basically a budget. Just about done with phase 1.
Does it still have a splash pad in it, or did they remove that?
Yeah, we'll have to find a spot in the plan for that.
Is it in there currently, or
it is not in there currently? But we're very close to being done with phase 1, and then phase 2 and 3, the public outreach and the synthesis they sort of mesh together. It's a very quick phase as long as we can follow those requirements for public outreach. So we're chugging along, making very good progress on the plan. Just about done with that first part, and then the city will conduct public outreach in a manner that is, concurrent with the planning requirements and, good for the sort of responses we need. Well monitoring, the department has gone back into the archives and synthesized all the broken and missing data from previous years. And now we're getting to a point where we can look at the data and analyze it, and then also go back through previous QAPs and contracts and see where we are with that. So we will be going through those documents and trying to direct our approach in a manner that was concurrent with whatever that plan stated needed to be done in 2014 or 2015 when that QAP was from. Dry Butler. So coming up, and I don't know if it's already come before y'all yet, but coming up for signature is amendment number 3 to the Dry Butler project. The amendment is a flat 9-month extension in all deadlines to allow our contractor, which is Central Klickitat Conservation District, time to continue working on the assessment. Additionally, there's no more money in the for this project. That funding source dried up many years ago. So what we have is sort of what we got to work with. So we took, because the county doesn't directly bill through staff wages for this project anymore, We took I think it was like $3,000.
It was like 3,500 from one item to another item, and I was gonna ask you why, what's the purpose?
It
of
just
that?
makes it more efficient for the contractor to bill to that specific line item, right? Because that line item was billed by us in the past. So since we don't directly bill for it, just makes it easier, just a little, that way we don't have to get another amendment through just to do that. So that's coming before y'all, 9-month extension, that shift of the budgets. We spoke to our contractor and they said that there's more than enough money in the task to complete the assessment. It's just a wait and see, and we don't anticipate another amendment, especially given that the funding source has been driven up. What we're going to get is what we're going to get. Additionally, if it's of the board's interest, the department is happy to put together an informational presentation about the project's history, its objectives, its merits. Any questions?
I would
that the
love
board might
that.
have?
I would love that, to have some kind of a presentation so everybody knows what's going on. The public can see what's going on. I think that would be great.
Absolutely. The
Did
department-
did you send the report from the original that had Dry Butler and Idlewild to Commissioner Christopher?
Oh, I did not. Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, that'd be a good place to start, because that pretty much has the report where we're at.
Absolutely. Any questions? Dry Butler.
You could probably send the one that also includes the Spring Creek.
Yeah.
Because we've got a report on Spring Creek as well from Aspect.
Well, I would hope that would all be part of your little
It would.
presentation. No, I think the presentation, great idea. I love it.
Yes, sir. So lead entity. So the lead entity, I wouldn't say it's finished, right? Because nothing's finished, but we're out of dates basically for the grant rounds. The technical committee and the citizens review committee have done their ranking and scoring, and the official ranked list that we will be submitting to RCO over 3 projects is the Snyder Creek project in, I guess, rank 1. The Columbia Land Trust acquisition around Lytle. It's an acquisition of one of the last few private reaches of the Klickitat. And then in 3rd place, a cost amendment for a project way up in the headwaters of the Klickitat around the, I think it's called Diamond Fork, way up there in the Yakima Nation territory. The rank list will be submitted to the surf board. Doesn't mean a whole lot because we only got 3 projects, so it's not really going to affect our funding, right? But it is good news that we were able to get that ranked list in. And then additionally, regarding funding, I have received an updated estimate from the Recreation and Conservation Office that we will receive our full ask, basically. So $942,000, 730 in surfboard, 223,000 in riparian, which will be our full ask, which will be enough to fund all of our projects. There was a leftover $600,000 in riparian that will have to be reallocated among the Mid-Columbia lead entity. And I talked to Alex Connolly, who's the director over there, and we would talk in the future about maybe trying to get the Klickitat lead entity some of that back for the next grant rounds. But that does bring up the fact that the riparian dollars were new to the grant rounds. It was a new funding source that was available through the Climate Commitment Act, and the Climate Commitment Act might get overturned this year. So it might end up just being a sort of one-time funding injection. So it might just not matter. It means whether we get the money back or whether there's any riparian or anything like that.
So the 223 for riparian, is that supposed to be used on this project?
No. So that's through that Columbia Land Trust acquisition, which is like around Lytle. That was, so the Lower Columbia gave us $150,000 in riparian. And unlike their surfboard, which we can only use in RIA 29B or white salmon projects, he was cool, Steve Manlow, with me using it anywhere.
Really? That's a first.
That is a first.
Wow.
He was cool with me using it anywhere. So I took that 150, put it towards we took the 150, put it towards the 223. And then the rest we pulled from the Mid-Columbia's riparian. And then that 600,000 will be reallocated, hopefully trying to retain some of that, if that's even something that we can use next year with the Climate Commitment Act.
So where's the dollars coming from for this project?
Oh, this is just this is coming through WWRP, right? So it's a
So
totally
they
different funding
didn't
source.
want to apply for riparian funding. We had 600,000 sitting there. Why did they not want to apply through that?
I made it very clear, or we made it very clear to the sponsors that there was lots of riparian money available and there were no takers.
Wow. Okay.
I'm with you.
I mean, we talked about it before. I figured that after we talked, they would have jumped right on board with it.
Yeah, and that's along with the another $150,000 in the standard surfboard funds from the Lower Columbia, meaning that we'll have a significant amount of money just for RIA 29B projects next year, which got to get a RIA 29B project, right? I don't want to roll over $500,000, right? That would be silly. So I don't disagree. And,
okay.
We'll try to do more sponsor outreach during the next grant round to ensure that we don't have any leftover funding. Not that, it's not the worst thing to roll over funding, but we don't want to potentially lose it by being careless. So regarding future dates, we're planning to update the lead entity strategy, as I've already informed the board. The update, it probably will not be exhaustive. It's just going to be updating new research, new project area prioritization to reflect the work that's been done, not only by the Klickitat lead entity, but or sponsors who have done work using other funding sources. So that maybe, for example, a lot of work has been done on the Klickitat in the headwaters up there. Maybe if we, if you held a gun to our head and only said we had a certain amount of money, what projects would we fund, right? How would that be dispersed throughout the county? Where are the project areas that are of significant need? Where have the steelhead stocks improved, right? How we would sort of rework that to reflect what's been done since the strategy was last updated. Additionally, there is an amendment going before the board to the lead entity contract. Would call it an amendment per se. It reflects the original contract, which was from June, July of 2023 to June, July of 2025. It was just split in two for some reason, where that first 90K was funded from 23 to 24, and then the second part was funded from 24 to 25. So although it's an amendment, it's really sort of a continuation of the original contract.
We do it every year.
We do it every year, yeah. So it's not something new. It's $87,000 roughly in funding from July of 24 to the same time 25. That's about all I got for lead entity.
Did you ever think you'd be working in natural resources as much as you are?
No.
You picked it up really fast, though. It's awesome.
Got all this money for repairing area, whatnot that nobody wants, but they
Crazy.
can't fund our corner or anything else.
So I will say to that,
So it's just frustrating.
we were considering adding it on here, but we didn't want to riff on this. But this was a confusing rollout for the whole.
Maybe we can build a coroner's office in a riparian area.
It was a cluster, and there was a lot of money left on the table, and sponsors are already overstretched, and a lot of people.
I said the state tends to get a lot of money for things that people aren't terribly interested in, and doesn't fund the things that they mandate us to do.
They come from different buckets of money, which that money might be gone.
Mm-hmm.
This is a question from days of old when I was back in the day in your chair. Why were 29B?
Yes, ma'am.
Where is its location?
That's the White Salmon River. So
Okay.
it's the Wind River and the White Salmon River make up RIA 29, and they split it in half. And the Wind River is Lower Columbia, and we're White Salmon.
Okay, because that happened after the fact, so I got lost in that one, but good to know. Okay.
So Chelsea's not with us today, so she's on vacation. So I'll cover down on economic development real quick. For the Klickitat Mill site, with the integrated planning grant, we have already gone out for RFP. We're getting a lot of interest in it. We've gotten some applications, and Mary from Ecology is going to be part of our group that's deciding which consultant to go with. She's got a ton of experience doing these brownfield projects across the state. So it'll be me, Chelsea, and Mary from Ecology. If the county commission
Are the
wants to
prices coming in decent?
Yes. Yeah. So, and we're very regulated on the price limit on each task. So
that's why I was questioning.
yeah. Columbia Gorge Regional Airport. the industrial site readiness grant of $250,000 for the architectural engineering. We're at the end of that. We've got about another week that we can build to that. We should be at about 80–90% complete. I do need to coordinate with Jeff on getting those invoices put through. So, but that deadline is going to be here in the next couple of weeks. Commerce actually had another $50,000 that they offered to give us, but we just couldn't spend that $50,000 in a week and a half, 2 weeks. So, in regards to the community directed spending request for Senator Cantwell's office, Senator Murray's office, and Representative Newhouse's office, we did not get recommended for funding. So the specific committee and program we went through for the funding request was through the transportation and HUD, specifically within the airport improvement program grants. We're going to get a debrief from Raquel. She's out of the Senator Murray's office. I suspect it's because the same reason why we got denied last year for this. Within the THUD Airports Improvement Program, whatever project you put in, it must be specifically outlined within the airport layout plan. The last time we had our airport layout plan updated at the Columbia Gorge Regional Airport was in 2012. So even though we've had pen and ink changes is what they call them, we've redrawn some of the lines, the lot lines and everything, the actual specific project needs to be put in the airport layout plan. From what I'm tracking, Jeff already has money set aside, given to us with a grant from the FAA for 2025 to update the airport layout plan. Those should be updated every 10 years. So we're a little bit behind schedule on that. But as far as
we're losing opportunity because have another plan that's expired. We probably need to cattle prod that a little bit, or this board or our airport designee needs to cattle prod that a little bit so we can not lose grant funding. Because if we don't have it coming from congressional designated spending, then we get to pay for it. So
yes, and so that plan is going to be coming out in 2025. In regards to other funding sources, there is within the U.S. Economic Development Administration, there is a federal disaster relief request process that we can go through. So if a federal disaster had been declared, they set aside so much money. We had one declared here in the county in 2021 and 2022 that encompasses the Columbia Gorge Regional Airport. And so we're going to be trying to make that request this summer. And then our last kind of, I don't want to say hope, but our last shot is then to do, if that fails, is to come back and do another budget amendment with the USEDA at the end of this year. So, but with the $250,000 grant we got, we're now down to about 1.2 million shy in regards to making this $6 million project come to full completion. So, affordable housing. So we have some turnover. I'm not sure if the county commissioners are tracking on that with WAGAP and Columbia Cascade Housing, with Joel Mattson and Leslie Nairmore moving on. We're trying to get somebody, a representative from those organizations, to be on the Affordable Housing Advisory Board before we do the mass appointment letter. Our public health director has already mentioned that she will continue to serve her role on that board as what was done previously with Kevin. And that leaves us one person from the county at large. So again, if the county commissioners have somebody, maybe we haven't gotten their application yet, that wants to serve on the board, still taking applications for that.
did you, county at large, did you talk to Mr. Rhodes, or is he already on there? Did you reach out to him?
I'm uncertain, but I can get you that answer.
I know he had contacted me and was interested in serving on the Affordable Housing Board, so I'm just throwing you a name. And if you don't have a number, I can probably find one.
Okay. And then in the next couple of weeks, what we're trying to do in preparation for our next KCP to board meeting, which is I think July 23rd off the top of my head, is the application for the House Bill 1406 sales and use tax housing dollars, getting that application solidified And making sure that the mayors, all three mayors, are happy with whatever we kind of bring forward to the full board with the Affordable Housing Advisory Board. So that's kind of where we're at with that. So we kind of have two pieces on that Affordable Housing Advisory subject, if that makes sense, that we're trying to move forward. Business retention and expansion. We do have a new person that has accepted the offer for the SBDC position. The last person we had was coming out of Nebraska. They chose to go somewhere else. The new person that they had interviewed with Ron Nielsen, I'm not sure if anyone on the board is familiar with this name, but she has accepted the position. Her name is Pessa Bowdish. So when she gets on board, I'll make sure to do proper introductions and everything like that. But she's going to be starting here in the next couple of weeks. So, and then city engagement. The city of Bingen just completed their curb economic analysis. I have emailed that to each commissioner. I've blind CC'd all three counties. You all can take a look at it. We just got it. This was to kind of jog the commissioner's memory. This was what I had assisted with, but the Leland Consulting Group, they're the ones that came up with it. But this is that whole project that Bingen has been trying to kind of pursue. So kind of what future development looks like for the city of Bingen. And then that's about it. That's all I got. Is there any questions for me?
I remember the last SBDC person that came on. Once they came on, they went pretty much immediately to training for like 2 months or something.
6 months.
6 months. Is that going to be the same case with Tessa?
Yeah. So you have to be SBDC certified. Yeah. This is a federal program. It's a very, from my understanding from the folks that I've spoken with, it's a very robust, challenging 6-month certificate process. It's not an easy process to get through. So
it's the
so
same
hopefully
thing.
we get our
Same thing like training somebody to be a corrections officer or road deputy. It's you hire them and then you don't get to use them for a while.
Yeah, but because they're local, she lives here in Goldendale. She'll be here in the office. Right. She is going to be going over to Skamania County a couple days out of the week, and they have introductions with Kevin Waters out there. So
okay. Good.
Anything else?
I don't have anything else.
All right.
Mr. Rhodes' phone number.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Trying to make your life easy.
You know I was going to come back later.
Well, you forgot about it last time I mentioned it, so I'm like, if I give you the phone number, you might remember it this time. Thank you, sir. And sir.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you. That was a good
The ma'am on vacation. I hope she's enjoying her vacation.
She is. She's in Montana. So
the fact that you're speaking, she needs to just put the phone down and enjoy her vacation without you.
We have a group chat. She's been texting us pictures.
Okay. Well, tell her to stay off the group chat. She's on vacation. Don't do work on vacation.
Okay. So I think we have a few minutes.
Agenda packet now has the updated
that we just did.
Correction thing in it, ready for signatures.
Okay. We just want to work on paperwork for a few minutes. Anybody have anything for the?
Did you reach out to Director Quinn and ask her if she's available?
Good. We have quite a bit of time.
And in Orlando is expensive.
Which one?
Oh, the communications officer, professional development.
Mine too.
I think we've passed them your way yet.
Yeah, Mike's not fluctuating. It's a lot of people are occasionally get the weird. I don't know how they join. I don't know if it's via Zoom on their phone or something, but yeah, they have no audio, no video, nothing like that.
Should go through those.
Well, I guess I'd say this is cheaper. This communication officer training is cheaper than the last training we sent to Florida. This one's half the price. And this is interesting too. I don't know if you saw that going on in here. It gives the state or the federal per diem rate for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and whatnot. But it also has an incidental expense on here. Didn't know there was such a thing. There isn't in our policy.
I've seen it in others, like Bridge, and it's things like parking.
Right. A quick Uber or a toll bridge or it's the same idea. Every time I cross the hood of a bridge, it's not like I'm, gonna write that on my sheet. But it's kind of odd that it's on here, and it may be something that might need to be added into our policy, because I feel the same way when we have our employees crossing the Hood River Bridge and they have no way for bring us a receipt for $2. Trying to find the agenda. Oh. Well, I would say I appreciate the agenda for this far more than I appreciate the last agenda. This one is all about business and not about politics. I prefer when you go to a conference if they keep politics off their agenda.
By politics, do you mean professional development?
Huh?
I'm trying to understand what you were saying, where you were going with that.
It's in the big folder that you have.
Okay, thank you.
And I would love to discuss it with you, but then I'd be bringing politics into the room, which I'm also trying to do.
That's what I was trying to understand what you're talking about.
So that is probably the one thing that I appreciate the most about Wasatch's conferences and our insurance companies' conferences is I have yet to find one single iota of politics on either side of any of those conferences that I've been to. The general conference we go to in November, and you go to the rooms and hear the stuff. I don't get politics out of that. Do you?
Oh, like in the workshops?
Yeah. I mean, that's the conference.
Only in some, I think. I don't know if you call it politics, but it's personal preference. When I went to some DNR things. and stuff.
DNR, yeah, I'm saying Wasatch and our.
No, they're
Well,
wonderful, except for that last meeting we had that was pretty contentious about some counties jumping ship.
Oh,
And it got
the
pretty
counties that haven't paid their bill in 3 years. Yeah, that'll be tomorrow too.
It reminded me of the British and how they are on split on each side and it's yeah, and they're yelling back and forth. It was
Oh, British Parliament
yeah.
or
Yeah, no,
our Parliament.
that's
So it
that's
really
what
got
these people on Zoom should do is pay attention to British Parliament and
Yeah.
watch one or two of those.
wild.
Boy, those were
Right.
ornery over there.
Yeah, it is. And they go on and on.
And they've dove into fist fights across the aisle. I mean, they've gotten some.
Yeah.
Pass me the blue one real quick.
They're very civil, but very indignant.
Well, sometimes they're
Oh.
civil and other times they're beating each other with their shoes, which is somehow okay to take off your shoe and hit somebody with it. Do, do.
What are you checking? I know.
Yeah, that would be a different director. I got in my cabinet for the first time in 3 months. I had 3 bags of Halloween candy in there and there was one piece left in each bag.
Did you ever find
Just
where all
one
your
left
candy
in each
went?
bag.
We know
Huh?
now.
You know where your candy went? Did you ever find it?
Where am I? Huh?
It's where the candy went.
Do you know where it went?
Well, I know whose belly it's in. Yeah, same
You all
person
know
that
me?
the same person that ripped the door off the hinges and tried to get
In a
into it,
hurry.
but He had permission.
Those were big bags.
Well, well, and normally I keep it stocked too, and I just haven't looked in that cabinet in forever. So he's probably jonesing because he doesn't have his stash to get to.
Maybe you can go give them your Snickers that you got delivered.
Oh,
I'm gonna
gosh.
put it under lock and key and lock that one.
I'm gonna tell him you have it.
I'll tell him you have 2. I know. Not in a different one. What's the last one? Yours burning? Okay.
What, twice today?
We were talking about candy.
They said I had to lock this up. You might have found the guilty party, huh? It wasn't the only one. There was more. Who? You're gonna spill the beans. She said you weren't the only one.
Should have gave you mine to take to him.
I don't think they know I hold or hide the almond roca and the good stuff in a separate drawer.
Uh-oh.
Now.
The chocolate with the caramel filled Galadelis or whatever the heck it is, and yeah, no, all that stuff's in a different drawer. Look at that, you got them before lunch.
Morning.
Finish up with the meeting.
Thank you for coming early.
Yeah. You got like 8 minutes, but that's okay.
We can sit here for 8 minutes if you need those 8 minutes.
I might today, actually.
I'm no hurry. Whenever you get ready, I'm
Yeah, it
ready.
does.
No, I won't make you wait for 8 minutes. That's not fine. I have a lot of information, so that'll probably maybe get you out on time or early anyway, so. So you should have gotten my board packet, so hopefully you were able to look through all the numbers on those. For environmental health, we've been working on mosquito trapping once a week or twice a week now. We're only doing the west end of the county this year. The program doesn't get a lot of funding, and it was becoming cost prohibitive to figure out the logistics of getting dry ice to multiple areas of the county. So this year, just to keep it within the budget that we're offered, we decided to just do the one site
What's the dry ice for?
to trap it
Oh,
attracts
to
the
keep
mosquitoes.
them-
So
oh, I
yeah,
see.
yes, we have a trap and they put the dry ice in it, and then they collect the mosquitoes the next morning.
I've seen one mosquito at my house in 6 years, and this year there's 3 or 4 in the house a night.
Oh,
And
maybe you should set up a trap.
I live in the middle of nowhere land, nowhere near water, and I literally have not seen a mosquito, but they're somewhere.
Yep, it's a year. So, and then we ship those to the state, and then they do surveillance on those, and they let us know if they're finding any diseases
West
that
Niles
maybe,
or
yeah,
anything?
yeah. So that season started, so they're doing that. We're having the Skamania County Food Inspector this week is shadowing our food inspectors to get some training that they weren't able to get in their department. They have a pretty new program, so we're helping support them this week. They're continuing to support code compliance, and then it's actually been really busy with site evals. Initially, we thought we were more busy than we had been in the last couple of years, but we're fairly well on point numbers wise. Just there's a little nuances, but it's, we're still seeing quite a bit of business there. So in clinical health, hopefully you should see a contract in the next couple of weeks for we're working on a breastfeeding peer counselor lead. We're required by the state to have that position. We had that position as a contract, and it went, that person accepted a job at the state. And so we're just replacing the same position that we have had in the past.
A lead, does that mean they're leading someone else? There'll be 2 people doing this?
There is. So we have a peer counselor right now. So it's an individual who has experience breastfeeding and then educates their peers. But the WIC program requires that we have a lead with a little bit more education to support that peer. So if they have questions, that they can go to someone. So yeah. So the contract will look different because the person we had doing it before had multiple duties as assigned. This is going to be just specific to, likely this will be specific just to this program. So we have had 3 reports of lead poisoning cases in children. We haven't had really any cases for quite some time. To have 3 in this short period of time is unprecedented for us. They are not in the same community. They are not in the same ages. And so really staff are working through what their potential exposures could have been. We do know that the state is requiring testing now. So if you want to find something, you look for it, right? So as there's more testing, we anticipate that we will continue to have more positives. But until we have a little bit more understanding of where those kind of are coming from, we don't really have any ability to give any education out about
How
that.
did you find them?
How do we, they
Yeah.
through their primary care, they're getting.
I mean, they
lead
got
testing.
sick and went into the primary care doctor, and the care doctor said you have lead poisoning.
Or they were screened. WIC is actually requesting lead screening. That's part of the early childhood, like.
So it's something they
physicals.
might have in their DNA of their hair follicles.
Not in their DNA, no.
I thought
Oh,
that's
it's a
how
blood
you found
test.
traces of lead.
It's just a little finger stick.
So they're in there for something else, and they're running a test, and they find lead in there.
Yeah. And I honestly, yes, that's how that works, but I honestly can't, with these 3 specific cases, say whether they were sick or not sick. I can't answer to these 3, but generally it's part of the childhood screenings at this point. It's been new, I think in the last 2 years, that's been a requirement.
Interesting.
Just as part of your well child visits.
I guess I'm very curious about this. I mean, not a good program, but what are they trying to get to? What are they trying to? Are they trying to still find lead paint and kids eating paint chips?
Yep. I mean, there's a lot of old houses in this community.
Okay.
I mean, there is that's absolutely.
I mean, it's either
potential.
that or the water pipes in my mind.
I would be more concerned about water pipes, I think, at this point. But you know, to your point, paint chips, that's not for the
Interesting.
older farm equipment, I think.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, so that's something we're keeping a really close eye on. We understood that we'd have more due to this increase in screening.
Yeah, I'd be very curious to keep updated on that one.
Yeah.
See if there's something we can do to kind of remedy that.
I think one of the frustrations is that we don't provide, as a health department, we don't provide any abatement or so your house. If you want your house checked, you have to, if you want your house checked, you have to pay for that.
Right.
So that's really all we can recommend is that you can pay to have an environmental study to see potentially, unless we can readily identify the cause. And we know that, you know, you just saw your baby eat a handful of paint chips and we know, like, you know, so I think that's going to get frustrating.
To get all these old houses mitigated for lead paint,
yeah,
inside and out, and asbestos as well is insane amount of money. So.
It's prohibitive for most people. So when we have more information and because this is a new program, we may not have the answers initially for all of these. But I think it will continue to, it'll continue to morph as we identify more cases and see what the trends are. 3 people is not necessarily a trend. They're in different communities. We can't connect them in any way to say they all, you know, are at this home using these water pipes or anything like that. So anyway, it's a big thing for us to have this many cases, and we're definitely keeping an eye on it and working through that. So clinical health completed their WIC audit. They always find a few things. I think they're pretty much done with the corrections for that. We also completed a 2-day audit for our sexual reproductive health program. There's quite a few things that they want us to fix there. I think they're going to be supportive of helping us with some of our challenges around billing and finance with that program, and the challenges that we're having with the healthcare authority and the roadblocks they're putting up in for us to get revenue. So keep you posted on that. And then they also participated in some outreach with the REACH program and at Lyle Art in the Park. 2 of the nurses were out there and supported their project as well. So any questions about those 2 before I Go to the next. No? Okay. Administratively, we have an opportunity to work with Lewis County to share an epidemiologist position. They received money from the state, I think 2 years ago, and I'm not going to talk about what happened in the last 2 years, but they were given money to share an epidemiologist position for our county and their county. So it's up to them to manage the hiring, although we'd likely be involved, but benefit, salary, all of those things. But that we will share that position. I'm working through with them right now how much of an FTE we feel like we need to support our county. We've never had an epidemiologist before. So this is going to be a big deal for us, and how we making sure that we use them in a manner that's appropriate for this county and for our workload. So
what does an epidemiologist do?
So they would look at trends, they would look at health trends, they would be able to help us, like if we had a big outbreak, if there was a foodborne illness, and we needed additional staff, they would be able to help us investigate that and look and see where the trends were as far as how we could link cases, like what the common denominator was. They'll support assessment activities, so any of the community health needs assessments or compiling them all for the county, so that and look at trends of those and trends of reportable diseases. They probably would help with just our monthly programmatic reports. You know, I provide you with the numbers, but they'd be able to provide numbers that, you know, looking at unduplicated versus duplicated. And I think just give better data to ensure that we're making the right decisions when we're making strategic plans as far as what programs or how to change programs in the future. So I'm still, I don't know how that's all going to shake out. I don't know how much time they're going to dedicate to the county, but that's something that I'm working on right now. So we do have 2 positions open right now. We have a clerical admin assistant 3 position open in White Salmon. We had the health educator program position open. We got 39 applicants. I was able to screen, I think, 6 out pretty quickly just based on the requirements. There's a lot of really well qualified candidates. So we're talking about how to screen those through a little bit more so that we can get it done. Health education. So we're working on that. We have a application due for the public health infrastructure grant. That's going to offer public health another $200,000 for training and education, workforce development money. So we'll be submitting, we asked everybody to put through what kind of training they might be interested in. And so we're going to submit that application this week. So you might see quite a few trainings, requests and travel requests coming through, because that's, I think through the end of 25, that will be an opportunity. So, through another grant, we were allowed to actually, we're allowed some money to replace desks for people that wanted ergonomic stand-up, sit-down desks. So you may see that coming through too, but that money was granted through the COVID workforce development grant. So that was an additional, that was the $200,000 I told you I had for training this year. Then I have another for next year. So we're trying to make sure that we're able to maximize that opportunity.
You do a wonderful job finding those type of grants. And you do a wonderful job putting in our budget packet, the budgetary cost to the county paid for by grant. If I can get the rest of our departments to do that, I'd be very happy. You do good work.
Well, we're just granted these. I didn't find them.
Like, I know, but you explain it to us in the packet. So we don't think it's county money that's paying for things.
Well, but you don't give me any money, so
I know.
it's all me. Thank you. Sorry. Stated the obvious. Anyway.
I won't thank you again.
Okay. Sorry. We did attend the Washington State Public Health meeting at the beginning of June. We did have 4 people go. It was a really good opportunity for a lot of networking. I did take Elizabeth, our finance person. She was able to network and get some resources from other finance managers and other health departments that I think are going to be really helpful for us. And then 2 of the nurses are actually on some of the state committees. And so being able to go and support the state committees from a rural perspective is really valuable as well. So that is public health. Questions about public health?
For the epidemic,
The epi position?
the epi position, is it just for public health? Is it environmental health? Is it disease? Like, are they,
Environmental health is public health.
but are they specific to one that they're going to be the person that they're hiring for? Or is it just all encompassing? Because I
It's
know
for
there's a
public
bunch.
health. It's for both. We do epi in both departments, clinical and environmental health, but we're just one department. So yeah.
I didn't know if they were going to be involved in infectious disease stuff and.
Yep, disease
Okay.
trends, and that's why they do backup for disease investigation and any outbreak support.
Okay.
So, yep. Behavioral health. So we're completing the electronic medical record selection. We had it down to 3 candidates. I think they've selected out of 2. They're going to ask the third one to come and give a follow-up presentation to see if we think that that's a good fit for us. I was happy that the cost was the middle of the road one because that just made me happy. So speaking of money, just tracking that. We are interviewing a psychiatrist on Friday. We found them through kind of a headhunter, not kind of, we found them through the contract we have with iHire to find staff. I'm unsure if I'm going to tell you that they're going to be an employee or a contractor, but just be aware that we're having that conversation on Friday. That would allow us to be able to see clients who need prescriptions, which has been a huge gap in this county, like an excessively huge gap.
Is this going to be a local person that's a face-to-face, or is this going to be a Zoom?
No.
Telehealth?
No, it's a face-to-face one because that is my requirement.
That's good. See, I would say good job again, but then you'd probably come back at me, so.
That's what I'm here for. We are hiring DCR positions. 2 of our DCR contractors. 1 is done at the end of this month, and 1 is done at the end of in mid-August. So we are looking to replace those positions. They are interviewing someone, I believe, this Thursday. And then we're also hiring for a peer counselor, substance use program disorder, which will help support the substance use disorder program. So we are still planning on a soft opening for SUD services only starting July 1st. And then looking to build, hopefully we can add on from there. We have completed our contract with Community Health Plan of Washington. So they're doing they're paying us their proportionate share based on the other large M3. There's 4 total Medicaid organizations. They're paying their proportionate share based on their percentage of members that they serve in this county. The other 3 are still pending. We believe that Molina will be on. We were verbally told that Molina would be on board July 1st, but have not heard follow-up from them about completing that. And then we're still working with Coordinated Care and AmeriGroup, which I think is now called WellPoint. So that's where we're at with finances for behavioral health. We did have our Carillon audit. So Carillon is the company that owns our crisis contract and the bulk of the funding that we have for this program. So our audit was completed, I think, the beginning of this month. They definitely had a list of findings, all of which I would expect with a brand new program. And I think those should be pretty much wrapped up by the end of this month or mid-July to get back and our, what is it called? Corrective action report. So we should have all of our pending things done in the next couple weeks to get back to them. So we have that. And then we're continuing to offer SUD group services in the jail, as well as the mood and behavior management classes in the jail on Thursday. And those are getting really, really good attendance and I'm getting really good feedback about how people feel about the opportunity to be able to participate in those options. So that's been just a real huge success for us as far as mental health in the jail. So
On the same lines, and you may already have this to be covered somewhere else in your thing, and I apologize if I bring it up too early. You were gonna come forward with some kind of a opioid dollar person.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know if you can throw that in where you're at in that process as we go through your update.
They just want to be invited to talk to you all. So whenever I can just give the name to your staff and you guys can work with them from there. They're out of the country at the moment, so it'll be a couple weeks before they get back to you, but they very much would like to come have a conversation and see what that means to you all and when they get back. And get that coordinated for you. Yeah. And then I understood that you had questions about the farmer's market debacle.
I don't know if I'd call it a debacle.
I would.
Okay. If you could just provide a brief update on what state regulations are and maybe what wasn't being done or what should be getting done or however you want to address that is fine with me.
Okay, I'll start and then you can ask questions if you have.
Perfect.
I don't know how I'm going to address at least one of the things you asked me about, but we'll just work through it. So our health inspectors in our department go out and go to generally all of the events in the summer. So we go to the rodeos, we go to community days, we go to the farmers markets. That's part of their job to ensure that everyone that's selling food is selling food that's packaged in an appropriate manner for public consumption based on the state laws. So we had staff that went to the farmers market in Goldendale. There's been multiple complaints that there were vendors there that were out of compliance and not having their permits there. When they went to the one in Goldendale, there were 4 vendors who were out of compliance, and all of them were asked to make sure that they had the appropriate permits. Not all of them were permits that fall under the health department, the WSDA, which is cottage industry, so it's jams, jellies, that sort of thing. Those are permitted under WSDA. We'll still tell you in order to do this, you need to have a permit, but you need to go to them to get the permit. Any meat is under USDA.
You actually enforce those then if it's under somebody else? Would you be writing a citation to them if they didn't have it?
No. And I want to make it very clear, we did not
Right.
issue any citations, and that I think is part of the debacle. This department operates on an education first. And so people were educated that in order to sell this type of food in this manner, this is what you need to do, including you need to have your appropriate food handler card and or permits. And I understand that wasn't received well, and that's probably hard to hear, but no one was sent home. Nothing was closed. We literally asked people to come out into compliance. So out of the 4 vendors that were identified at that time, 1 has already resolved, 1 is in progress of almost resolved, and 1 is in conversation. So people were pretty receptive about getting that taken care of. So I know there's been quite the hullabaloo, but it's been blown out of proportion from my perspective.
Okay. So you were just educating them on what permits they need from which organizations. You are not there to enforce said permits or lack thereof.
No.
Nor are you shutting them down because they don't have said permit from said organization.
Correct.
That would be said state organization that would need to come down here and shut them down if said organization wanted to do so.
Correct. Although if you fall under our guidance and you continue to not resolve, and we work with people, if we want to work with them to, we will help people walk through the application process. We will help explain, we will work with them to get that. If they continue to sell food, we can give them it's essentially cease and desist letter. None of those were given at this time. We're trying to work with people to do the right thing prior to going that far. I mean, in the past, we've had to use law enforcement to close things. That happens like once every, I don't even know how many years. It's very uncommon that we get to that point, or that people won't work with us to make sure that they have the appropriate licenses to be able to do what they want to do. Does that answer your questions?
Yeah.
You asked a lot and I'm not sure I covered all of them.
I think you're good.
Okay. So, and furthermore, and this is my own personal opinion, I think that there's, we had multiple complaints. I think there's some, petty drama. I've already received an anonymous letter, accusing other vendors of other nefarious activities. And I think frankly, we're caught in the middle of, some sort of feud that has nothing to do with us asking people to get the appropriate permits.
Well, I appreciate it because if you get your information from Facebook, it's usually the wrong information.
Correct.
And that's all that's out there. So the purpose of this for me was to not only educate me and them if they needed it, but it was to set the record straight to anybody that was or is related to the farmers market so they can understand.
Yeah, and I know there are people that offered that it was cost prohibitive to get the licenses, which we appreciate. And I know WSU used to help with those small business grants or, access to that. I don't know if Seek has, there's a lot of community organizations or small business grants. I think there's a lot of resources, and I would just encourage people to look those up and see if they could get support that way. Or, if you guys wanted to add some extra money to my budget next year, I'd be willing to change the prices. Just saying.
For our permits.
Yeah.
That still doesn't affect the permits that they're not getting from other
No,
organizations.
I'm just, price came up as an issue, and I'm just saying there's options.
What do we charge?
It depends on which permit you get. It's anywhere from $50 to $200
per year.
That's the difference. So is it a one-time event? Is it a seasonal event? Is it an annual event? So there's multiple layers, and then what are you doing with that permit? So anyway, we did about I think 180 some total food permits last year.
Do they so more on that? Daily, monthly, yearly, would they need the same for food permit that a restaurant does, and the cost is the same for Saturday market as it is a restaurant? That
fall under the farmers market would fall under a seasonal, because it's just temporary short
term. And what is the cost of that? Is that some insanely?
Well, I think I hate to say, I think it's $150. I don't have it right in front of me. I'm sorry. So, and I think the one especially that's cost prohibitive is the cottage food license. So your jams and jellies, that one, which does not come under us, that's WSDA, that's $350. So, and I think that's, we understand, but I think that fresh fruits and vegetables and local homegrown things are a really important part of the community, and we have no intention of shutting any of those down.
Well, I personally would like to have a discussion about the rates we charge for farmers market type stuff, and whether the county wanted to look at changing that number. So that would be something that I would entertain in a future discussion if there was consensus from the board to do so.
I figure it would cost about $12,000 to offset most food permits by half.
Is that just for farmers markets, or is that for restaurants as well?
I didn't pull them out specifically.
I look at restaurants, you're making enough money that you can afford a $150 permit. The guy selling a head of lettuce at the farmer's market may not.
Correct.
So if I was looking at trying to reduce the permit costs, it would be to the farmer's market specifically and not to restaurants.
What about nonprofits?
I would entertain the discussion.
Yeah. I think if you go one, you're going to go down a slippery slope. And
I would entertain the discussion for that kind of stuff, but I would need to see a thorough analysis of costs and who's getting it and who's not. And to be able to justify and rationalize.
Yeah,
my
I
little
just did
keyword.
averages just as a basis to start the conversation, but I can certainly.
Because I'm with you. I think the market provides a valuable resource to people that don't have their own gardens and doesn't want to buy a head of lettuce from Mexico that they don't know what the hygiene of the lettuce is. And a lot of those farmers market people are not, raking in bank. So it's called supporting your community. So I would like to hopefully further that discussion.
Yeah, it'd be nice to be able to scholarship those people.
Or
in
something.
Some way.
Ideas, yeah. Okay.
When would you like to have that information by?
Whenever the board is willing, if they're accommodating to my thought process.
Do you want a workshop or do you want?
We don't fill up our Tuesdays. It can be on any Tuesday morning or any Tuesday afternoon for half an hour. I don't care.
How many seasonals do we have right now that apply?
I don't know. I just got the 2023 food permit numbers. Just
As I said, she's gonna need to dig more data. So I'm not even talking next week.
no, I
When
know.
you get
I just-
time.
yeah, I'll figure it out and let your staff know. But I didn't know kind of what really information you were looking for out of this discussion to get like an entire analysis put together. So
Well, right. And what you did is perfect today because I need to know what's going on so I know the prices and I know and that brings up other ideas and then we can work on that.
yeah, because I think just having the ability for people to get that help with payment, because people may not, $150 may be very cost prohibitive for a lot of people. Or more, 350.
I guess the other thing is we need to know for setting prices, what the actual cost for staff is to permit somebody selling a head of lettuce versus somebody who's running a food cart or somebody who's running a restaurant, so that we can see the time commitment between those.
And then ideally to me also would be something to analyze is what are other counties charging for farmers market type permit for the same type of permit. So we know we're, either in the ballpark or we're going to give you one hell of a reduction.
So
kind of a scenario, but that's all fact finding that I don't know when you have time for, but.
We'll figure it out. We did recently, and I can't remember when to say specifically, but we did change our environmental health hourly rate recently to $60 or to $100 an hour. I'm sorry. So that's just as a basis, and you're just while we're thinking through the conversation that's what we charge for. So we don't make money on food permits. It is not covering our time. And that's where we use our foundational public health funding that covers our time so that we can still do it. We definitely get revenue from the food permitting process, but it does not cover our time or cost. Right. So that is not
That's the reason we're not doing Skamania County anymore.
Correct. Also, I was asked if we could support them, and I said no, just for your own awareness, to come back for environmental health. And I said that we needed to focus on our own department right now versus working for someone else. So if you feel contrary to that, let me know. But
I agree with you. Okay. That's all I had on the issue. Thank you. Thank you for allowing it.
Can I just bring that back at my next update, which is actually in August?
Whenever you want.
Okay. That gives me like 6 weeks to figure it out.
As long as I can tell the public that we're working on it and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. Happy. All right. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Questions?
Did you say you wanted to talk about
the other public complaint I've had is not being able to conduct county business or public business during lunch hour in the Goldendale office anyway. I've not heard complaints from the White Salmon office, and they mainly revolve around water samples. So I'm curious if there's any way that we can voluntarily facilitate serving the public better so that they don't have to take time off of their work schedule to drop off things like water samples.
Yeah, so the health department used to actually be open at lunch like years ago. But we found that there wasn't enough business to actually just as a I'm just starting with the
And there
history.
probably won't be.
Yeah.
You'll be have nothing for a lot of days a week.
Yeah. And then I talked with a couple people about this yesterday too. And my biggest argument back, and then I'll circle back around specifically to what you asked. My biggest argument is I cannot keep that office open because of safety. We're continuing. Last week we had to call the police, I think, twice because people were in our office. I cannot staff that office. I will not staff that office with less than 2 people minimum, just from a safety standpoint. So, changing schedules around seems very prohibitive. I will say that if people call and are kind in their requests, my staff are very accommodating and helping people out to make sure that they can get what they need.
Is there I guess I'm just trying to think outside the box on how to give you 2 people at a time or something. Is there a way we can, I guess I'd say alternate hours, Monday and Wednesday we're open for lunch and the rest of the week we're not or something? Is there an option there that at least they have something that they don't have to try to get their employer to give them an hour of time off if they work in the Dalles to come drop a water sample off, Is there something we can give them?
Well, I think we go back to, I don't know, I have not gotten any complaints, so I don't know if this is one person or if this is 10 people or how that works. But again, if it was somebody that needed some extra assistance, I can work with one person. But if we're gonna, I hate to change everything up when I don't want to change my entire staffing structure for one person, I guess, is, if you know what I mean. Like, I understand what you're saying. We tell everyone when they come in that we're not open for we do not accept water samples from 12 to 1. It's on their paperwork that they take home with them that we don't accept them from 12 to 1. I do understand your concern about being available to the public. But I just.
Right. And my issue is the water sample, but I don't know that there's not more people that want to talk to public health during noon to 1 that isn't about water samples. So it's not strictly about water sample.
Yeah. It's something I could consider, but we're having more and more safety issues, and even 2 people in the office at this point is starting to, I think, not be enough. So, I would rather work with people on a 1-on-1 basis than change the entire structure of our staffing, at least initially. And then if it continues to be a problem, to go from there.
Do most of the people that come in need additional services, not just what the front desk is offering?
Well, if you have the water samples, then, like here, Avery would have to be there to run them. So then, yeah, or if you come in and they need a nurse. Right. So depending on what department they need, if it's just something that they're just needing to leave a message or get a birth certificate, then the staff at the front can certainly support them in that way. But I haven't had any complaints, I don't think, in white salmon. And we actually have more volume in white salmon than we do here, for sure.
How many employees do you have in the office on a daily basis in white salmon versus how many employees do you have in the office in Goldendale on a daily basis?
The long answer is that depends. So I have 6 staff that are full-time here. I have 13 in white salmon, but
that's a close enough ballpark, and people go from one to the other.
Yeah, because Wick's here 1 day a week. I'm here 1 day a week. Yeah. So typically I would say, even though that there's 6 full-time staff here, I would say anywhere between 8 and 10 at each office, just because of the movement and the work that we do. So we see significantly more clients in white salmon than we do here. I think the immunization numbers I looked at the other day for Goldendale were like 143, and white salmon are 404. Significantly higher.
Immunization I can understand, but
yeah. But just
sick and breastfeeding and all that stuff, I would almost think it's the higher number here. But if they're not using the services that are provided, that's on them.
And then, you know, I think they're pretty equal actually, but in our sexual reproductive health, our significant number more clients in the white salmon office. So it's pretty, the white salmon office, as far as foot traffic goes, is definitely busier.
Okay. All right. Then I would say, as far as I'm concerned, I've addressed what I needed to address. You've given me the information that I need to move forward. I would say let's just watch and listen and not recommend any change at this point unless you think there's a way to safely, because that's my first priority, is the safety of the employee. So I didn't think that.
Yeah, and you know, we have an emergency button at the front desk, but there have been times where maybe that's not easily accessible. So I've always tried to make sure there's somebody, because we have one in the back as well.
That was one of my worries with the frosted glass.
Yeah.
So people can't see even what's going on inside, and that's a not good thing. So
yeah, there was that, but also we need to protect our
right. I get the pros and cons. I get it.
And we have, and I'll be straight up, I have never had this many issues with
Is it mental health related for the most part? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm certain you've seen folks that are sitting in our lobby.
I haven't actually, but
okay. Yeah, no, just in the like down here.
Oh, yeah.
You all have seen some of the folks that sit down there. I've trespassed someone twice out of our office in the last year. They're calling a non-emergency dispatch. They called it Friday for 2 different people. So that's just becoming more and more of an issue for us, and seeing that more. And we are isolated at the end of the hall. Like there is nobody else down there. So that makes me uncomfortable too. It's not like we're, you know, across the hall from someone else that's going to see we need backup. So
you have on your front counter, I haven't been in there in months. Is there a partition at the front counter to keep somebody from jumping the counter?
The glass, but no, they could, if they were motivated, they could do that.
Go through the glass?
Oh yeah.
I haven't heard any complaints. I get a lot more complaints about the dumps being closed during lunch. That's where I get all my complaints.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, but that's not our business.
We agreed to it. They came to us and asked us if they could do it because it was part of the contract.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, I think it just, if people ask kindly, I think my staff are very accommodating. But we do get a lot of requests that are frankly bullying, so that's not as easy to accommodate.
Okay.
You're not alone.
Yeah. Okay, anything else?
Nope, well done, and thank you for the update.
Yep.
I look forward to the permit discussion.
August 16th.
Madam Chair, if there's nothing else, I'd make a motion we recess for the lunch hour.
I will second, just give me half a second to make sure I crossed everything off my list of things that I wanted to.
Motion and a second.
They all disappeared.
They ran.
For discussion, real quick, just to keep you guys aware of what my head is thinking. 2 discussions I would like to fit in this afternoon or in the future is whether we allow people to use pictures on Zoom.
Oh, interesting.
And staff can probably give us a better update on that, because we can't control what they show on their picture, but we can sure be sued for it. So it's something we probably should discuss. And then I would be very curious to ask HR, and I meant to stop Rob and Casey before they left so that they can kind of give me an answer, is when the last time the county looked into insurance costs, and or, you know, what have we done a bid between Blue Cross and Regions for our employees to see, kind of like when we changed our real insurance, our car insurance, if there would be a budgetary savings in switching from Blue Cross to Regions or Kaiser or whoever. So when's the last time we've actually done that? or looked at that analysis before we go into the budget cycle. So those are the two things that I would like to.
Are you gonna reach out to Casey and have her come to talk about the health insurance?
I can, I wanted consensus from you guys.
If
that
you
you're
wanna add it.
interested in dealing with it, and before I go talk to, I don't go tell employees what to do without directive from the board, so that's why I brought it up to you guys.
Right, but you could always go and talk to her and get the answers that you're looking for.
Well, I don't know if you want the answers that I'm looking for. That's why I'm asking.
You can,
No, I'll chat with her, Rob, or somebody.
Yeah,
And
and then just let us know.
yeah, and then you can give us the update.
Yep.
I don't have to have
I
staff
hate
come in.
doing updates because then I'm playing, I might misstate something that they know more than I know, so I would prefer they give us an update. I don't like the telephony thing because I'm not gonna say it as good as they say it, or I'm gonna mess something up. I'll do it.
Okay.
End of discussion.
All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Lunch, aye.
Aye. Thank you. See you at 1 o'clock. Turned it off. Good afternoon. Welcome back to the Klickitat County Commissioners' regular meeting for June 25th, 2024. We're going to begin this afternoon with a workshop on solar battery, and we have directors with us with the commissioners.
Can I ask a clarification question, which this is gonna be a problem chasing microphones? This workshop is about solar batteries.
Storage.
I keep hearing the word solar.
It should just be batteries.
Solar batteries, roundtable discussion. Most batteries aren't related to solar, so I would separate those two as my recommendation.
Large capacity battery storage.
Works for me.
Okay.
Lithium ion battery storage or whatever you want to make. But separate them from solar is my point.
Yeah, make it.
We won't. We're good.
We're good.
Thought we were gonna be back there. Awesome.
Great. Thank you guys for all taking time to come. It's awesome. Help us get things done quicker and ask questions. Where did you want to start? Anywhere? Start with oversight from Scott, maybe? That's where it
Jump
lands
in.
first, I
Yeah.
think is permitting.
I'd be glad to throw out a few thoughts. I'll try not to step on any toes as we do it. I'll just pass this around real quick. For folks online, it's a picture of a major battery storage facility that was actually brought to our attention. Just a question as to having a several hundred megawatt battery energy storage system, a facility that's nothing but battery storage. So it's not tied to anything. That kind of raised our eyebrows a bit. As far as that could be something that actually could happen. When you look at the energy overlay zone, I don't think it could because it's specifically batteries are meant to be, I think they'd be considered accessory at best. So I'll just go over a few thoughts I have, if that's all right. I'll just throw some thoughts out there.
This is the problem. You don't need a microphone.
Yeah.
So you're stating in your interpretation of the EOZ is not or the batteries are not a green energy project, so they would be under their own regulations and not part of the EOZ, or did I interpret that wrong?
I'll pass some things out and go, okay, start here. So I'll start with energy overlay zone. Just a statement. It's just the very beginning of it that talks about the permitted uses. So as far as outright permitted uses in the energy overlay zone, and this is my interpretation, people with the history of it may know something better. You have wind turbines and solar energy facilities as the only real outright permitted uses. In addition to that, you have accessory and temporary uses. So it says for accessory buildings, uses, and structures needed for operation of the above permitted uses. It says including, and that language can be interpreted different ways. It could be, sometimes you see included but not limited to. So sometimes you read that saying including means exclusively this, or it could including might be example. So it's a little unclear, but including utilities, utility infrastructure needed for the principal use, which I think that's probably what battery storage would fall under. My interpretation of this would be that a facility that is solely battery storage wouldn't fall into either category of A or B. And therefore it's not, it'd have to be accessory and have to be accessory to something. Someone could argue, I suppose, that it could be accessory to a use on a neighboring site. Usually when you're looking at uses, you're talking about a use on that site. So if you have an accessory dwelling unit, it's not an accessory to the neighboring lot, it's an accessory to the home that's on that lot. So my interpretation of this, unless someone else has history, including Lori, would be that really the battery storage, if allowed, would only be accessory to one of those two uses. And therefore, in my mind, fitting for it. So you couldn't have a battery storage that would be in excess of the capacity that needed for that particular facility.
Right. And my take on it has always been that if you have a solar project that has a couple of these on it, those couple of these, since it's part of the original project, are a necessity, accessory. Right. But this as its own standalone project is not mentioned in the EOZ, does not qualify in the EOZ, and would take a conditional use permit, is my interpretation. So I'm curious.
I agree with that. That's where I was going as well. Conditional use permits. So I talked to Lori and I've gone through some of these for some existing facilities. There's no wind turbines or solar facilities mentioned in the zones. They're all under, I'll pass another thing around. Here's all the mentions of utility facilities. And they haven't been approved under utility facilities, but they have been approved under the catch-all category, which is at the end, which is any use which is similar to use allowed in the zone that doesn't cause any greater impact than those uses. So these are all the mentioned utilities in the various zones there are. And those, I think, are what have been compared to when they look at the catch-all. Is that correct, Lori?
Yes.
So that's how they would have to be, my opinion, have to be approved.
I have a quick question for you, Scott. You say auxiliary, but you hear a lot about accessories, but you hear a lot about, wind turbines and solar isn't. So because they can't function 24/7 every day. So what would stop Juniper Canyon coming in 3 months from now and saying, I want to post a battery thing to offset as an auxiliary to offset my windmills?
Right. I think
just throwing that out there.
No, I think they could do that under our ordinance.
So
because
then
it would
they
be an
could
accessory.
post these things anywhere in the.
Under our current code, I think current code and how it's been implemented in the past.
Okay. Just curious.
I would say as long as it's sized for that facility only.
Right. But they could come in because we have a lot of windmills in this county. We could have a lot of batteries.
That's what I was saying. I think you can have a lot of batteries as they tag these onto existing projects as an accessory. But if it was a standalone project,
that's different.
That would be a CUP.
Yes.
But they might piggyback on one of these companies and say, hey, by the way, how about you buy into this and we'll put it on your property and call it an accessory and then get through the EOZ. Yeah.
Then a few other notes I just took. I think there's a lot of information out there anymore. I think there's enough to know that we should have concerns. Concerns doesn't mean I'm concerned about my younger son getting his driver's test. So that doesn't mean you shut it down, but it does mean you take precautions. So there's plenty of information that we have concerns. I think there's information that's shown that there have been improvements in the industry that have made it somewhat safer. But still, I think it's something we need to address. I would say also that our code and our EOZ is not sufficient to regulate where these go at this point. I think it is something that we definitely need to look into. I would also say that, in my opinion, the EOZ passed 2005. Is that right? Did I get the date right? I really doubt that the SEPA involved in that even considered battery storage. So I think we have that point. So I think that it's not supported by the SEPA. And that's really all that I think I had at this point, other than, that we may have an opportunity if there is such thing as a moratorium that you're looking at. I know that's on the table. And moratorium usually has to include a plan to resolve it so that you can't just leave it out there. Our grant for the solar ordinance could be a gateway to that. It could be phase one of the grant implementation to hire a consultant to give us best practices, do a study, put together a study for us on this. It's just something to throw out there that we may have a resource to help if we want to go that route. Do you have anything you'd like to add, Lori? planning side?
No, other than we are getting inquiries. There's been like 3 in the last 2 weeks, and they start out very simple. Battery storage, and then you start asking more and more questions, and then suddenly it's not just a few batteries, but large scale battery storage.
And I did,
And-
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. And they are reading our EOZ, trying to figure out if they could just come in and do this under an EOZ permit.
I pulled up several things, FEMA and some others, but one thing I found most valuable, and I sent it to you through email, but if you like the copy, I've got a hard copy. I found this to be a pretty good article because so many are biased one way or the other. Either they're perfectly safe or they're, the sky's falling. This one was more focused on what local governments can do to prepare, which is the stage we're at now. I know that emergency management is not where we're at because there's not facilities right now, but locating them certainly is something we want to look at. If anyone else like a copy, since I have some prints. Okay.
We'll get it to you.
Did you?
Yes.
Yeah, great.
Want to go around the table? Lynn, do you have things or you want to just go around? Right now, you can come back to you later if you want.
Currently, under building code, the one we just adopted, there is new language regarding battery storage. And if they submit for permits, then building code wise, we need to know the type, the quantity, and then based upon that, there's requirements for suppression, exhausting, keeping the temperatures regulated. But that's kind of the only thing that, building code site can look at. But there is some language, for protection of the container or whatever those batteries are going to be housed in.
From environmental health, it's pretty limited. A lot of our comments will be based on what is presented on the building side and what is presented from the emergency management side and cleanup in case of issues, and also disposal of some of those things. Because depending on how they test out, they might be considered hazardous waste. So we'll have to figure or adjust that piece too. But still a lot of information we don't know about what the project proposal is. So.
Yeah. Agreed. When we get down to specifics for emergency management's role in this, pre-planning for a catastrophic incident or anything less than that, notifications, process or events at the facility going directly to 911 dispatch, and notification of citizens for potential evacuations and pre-planning evacuation for the city of Goldendale if needed. There's just not enough information yet for us to start doing any of that work because there is no, at any site in our county, there's no definite plan to put one of these in. There is the option for the 2 solar sites that already exist, but nobody's actually taken steps to move forward. And so until I see what that really looks like, it's going to be hard for me to dedicate any staff time and taxpayer dollars to plan for something that is so up in the air still. It's also been a long process. When this first started coming up a couple of years ago, I looked into battery storage. The National Laboratory, which Scott handed this handout is from, attended webinars. The technology has changed so much. So in the emergency response world, the way that they're dealing with this versus some of the first catastrophic incidents in which they did not know how to fight one of these lithium battery thermal runaway conditions has changed drastically. The knowledge and understanding of that from the first time they had to dump tons and tons of concrete on that recycling plant to put out that thermal reaction has changed significantly. And just the fact that that facility
was not appropriate to begin with. All of those things have changed. So yeah, man, the codes, they're a couple years behind. So my recommendation as it applies to this discussion and, you know, CUPs and building codes and stuff is we need to do our best because the national fire codes can't keep up to look at industry best practices. Because that's where we're gonna actually have the best chance of keeping one of these facilities from having an incident, and then our ability to respond to it effectively.
Well, I mean, just like David said and everybody else, we're more going to be more reactionary. We're going to hear what because we don't know what it takes to build one of these things. So depends on what that is. Could there be a road haul involved? Possibly. We know they're going to be very limited for as far as maintenance. There's not going to be a lot of people, staff watching a bunch of batteries in a field. You know, you're definitely looking at stormwater, I'm going to say. But other than that, we're going to be very limited, and our conditions are going to be very limited. Yeah, if somebody says you guys need to figure out a way not to have this, it's not coming from us. It's more it's more of a zoning thing than us, because we don't get involved. And we're going to look at how many trips it's going to take to haul in all those batteries and how they're going to bring them in. Unless you got something else.
Just access, emergency
Mhm.
access in and out of that facility, depending on what they need for an emergency that pops up. But yeah, definitely stormwater. That's going to cover big acreage if it's like that picture. So.
Yeah, Mark finished going around the table.
I guess I would say I'm confused as why we're here. Like I explained in my understanding, this county has never thought about battery storage, even battery storage attached to a solar farm. I would go farther than Scott said and said that I don't think they really thought about solar in the SEPA that they did for the EOZ. It's mentioned like twice. Definitely not of the scale of what we're currently doing, and batteries definitely weren't. And I guess the biggest reason why I'm curious, why now? The previous board, I tried to pass a moratorium on lithium ion batteries so that we can get in front of this, because our code doesn't address any part of it, and could not get a second vote. And then last year with this board, I did the same thing and could not get a second vote. Why now?
One thing that moved me towards getting on it and working forward was you had brought it up, what, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, that I'm wondering. Maybe it's been longer than that, the weeks pass quick. And then just calls that we've been receiving and stuff. The reality of it is we don't have a plan. And to get that plan, we probably do need a moratorium in my mind so that we can create this plan. So I just wanted to have a roundtable discussion on the seriousness of where we're at in my mind. And then what are our options to start moving that so we can get organized?
Thank you for that. Yeah, because to me, there's a lot of questions because lithium ion obviously, has issues. But also a lot of the people aren't putting in battery storage right now because lithium ion is so expensive. They're waiting for the next one to come out. So I don't think the next question is, do you look at this as a prohibition on lithium ion batteries, or do you look at this as a prohibition on battery storage until either the planning commission or a consultant or whatever can educate us on best practice for all the different battery options that are coming forward? Because yes, I would like something in our code before somebody shows up and says, can we do this? which is why I brought this up 2 years ago, because our code has nothing in it. And so I think this is more than just lithium. Lithium is the battery today. What's the battery of tomorrow? What is just like the solar to me, what is population density criteria? What direction does the wind blow? What would an evac plan have to be? All those things should be in the code so that they have an emergency management plan that's signed off by more than just the fire chief. And this is what I've been pushing for 3 years. So I'm very thankful that we're finally moving along. But yes, this is going to be a very long, drawn out process. And I guess I would say I would like to, before this is turned over to a consultant or the planning commission, which I'm kind of hesitant on the planning commission idea part of it. There needs to be expert analysis, in my opinion. I don't want the planning commission going and reading a bunch of stuff off the internet and then deciding what they want to do with zoning because they read it on the internet. I would much rather have a consultant come in and give direction because I would like to see it done in a much broader scope than, Goldendale, Centerville Valley. It should be countywide until we have answers. Maybe it's open the entire county when we get done. Maybe it's closed in the entire county when we get done. I don't know, but we can't make that decision because right now we don't have an education. So I want to be educated by somebody that can actually educate me before we make a decision. And then it comes down to who gets to make the decision. Is the ultimate decision going to go before the planning commission, or is it going to come before this board in workshops like this? So those are my questions. But I would like to, number one, not make this about solar batteries and not necessarily even make it about lithium ion, which is what I've done in the past, because I think it's a much broader question that we need to get.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Here's just some numbers. And while we can say we're staring down the gun of the barrel of the gun here, in California in 2019, there was 250 megawatts of battery storage. In July of 2023, there was 6,617 megawatts. And by 2045, the state plans to have 52,000 megawatts. It's 52 gigawatts of battery storage. Battery storage is not just being done out here in the hinterlands. It's also being done within cities, within industrial areas, within cities, next to prisons and schools and everything else. The same thing that I've been saying all along, this is something that should be sent to the Planning Commission to do a review, to set standards. And the first thing I would say is we should request the Planning Commission to do a code interpretation so that all of us are on the same page, and that's appropriate on whether or not is it accessory use or a conditional use would be required. It's the same thing that we recently did with regards to data centers and processing, and that is how you create that final decision. So it's not all of us just spitballing what we think our interpretation is. That is something that then any developers we can then say, there's been a code interpretation, this is where you're at, this is the process you'd have to go through. In response to Commissioner Christopher saying that you would like to see all these things, absolutely, but that's not something you write in code. That's what you usually do when a project comes in, and then you say you have an individual emergency management plan. In your code, you say it requires an emergency management plan, signed off by all the people around this group, and that's the process you go through. I think that's probably the big thing that we can do is send it to planning, and the best thing is going to be is what is the setback from either residential or commercial or whatever else. I see during this most recent large battery system fire in an industrial area, it was a 660-foot setback is what the fire department and police were requiring. What does that look like here with our winds? Is 660 feet appropriate? I think there's a lot of transition in the industry that I've been reading about and how they're trying to limit the thermal runaway so that's why they're containerizing them. I don't think we're going to have them wanting to build them over here next to the power plant. They're going to be wanting to build next to wherever these, the large transmission are already built, like the original plan. I see likely people wanting to build them out there in the east end of the county where you've got those, all this wind turbines coming together, and it'd be an easy spot to do it. What does those setbacks look like? I think that's a discussion and decision that would be good for the planning commission. And when we pass the change in the allowable uses, when it comes to the more, not moratorium, but the actual prohibited uses, part of the discussion was to send this to the planning commission so that they could come up with standards for not only solar, but also battery. The problem is that we've been asking the planning commission to do a lot of things recently, and they've been working very hard and diligent. The question is, really for us, the policymakers, needs to be, what's the priority? And where does this fall on the priority with the other things that are required? And if the planning commission needs to have 3 or 4 meetings a month, well, that's what we're going to have to do. But the end decision is always in front of BOCC if it goes in front of the planning commission.
Okay, so yeah, I think emergency management, thinking about our county and the diversity in our county and the winds, it's crazy when you go from 10 miles inland, how the winds change. So site by site, it'll end up that way, I'm sure. Site by site, we'll have to have an evaluation. And I did, when I started thinking about this, I went to the 2 most helpful people with green energy. I went to California and to Wyoming. And I targeted certain counties that had a lot of product in their counties just to see what they did about regulating. And I have to say, I was really happy with the fact that they went after this. They made sure that they set priorities on the ones that I viewed. So there are some models out there. I think it's a great idea because of the funding now. Thank you, Scott, to use the consultant to help Scott develop the beginning of this. But I do think planning commission is crucial for helping that consultant once we get down the line, where Scott and the consultant can formulate where we need to go and what we're looking at, then take it to planning commission. And I know they've broken up recently and had interim meetings with just a few members targeting things, and then they can go back to the larger group. And
we discussed that.
Yeah, and they've all, yeah, it's a great way to work, and you get a lot more done faster that way. So, and then you get your dedicated people who want to learn and want to be on that team. And so that works for me. Then we also get people educated, we get ourselves educated, and we have dedicated people working on the subject. Go ahead. Yeah.
For me, I would like to keep this in our wheelhouse, at least for the time being, until we put some tracks on this train with the consultant before it goes to the planning commission. So I would like to, if I was going to see something, I would like to see something of a recommendation of a moratorium on large scale. You're going to have to come up with a definition of large scale battery storage that's not naming a specific battery, with directions to find a consultant, hire a consultant to work with the BOCC in this little working group to be able to get to some of the questions that this working group is going to need answered before they can weigh an opinion. And then when we get all that done, then I'm fine with sending it to the planning commission. But just sending it to the planning commission right now, I think you're going to overwhelm them and they're all going to do their internet research. And I saw how that got done in the past, and I would like to put some trains or some tracks on this train first.
Yeah, that sounds sensible to me. I would like for myself have the consultant work with you and look at what we could present and where we should, kind of just a beginning benchmark of where we should go. And I do think we need to develop a moratorium to give us that bandwidth and the time before we get more calls and then we're faced with what are we going to do and we don't have anything on the books.
And just a note, we still have to negotiate the scope of work, so we'd have to get that approved as part of the scope to include it.
Hey, Scott. You guys hear me?
Yes, we can, Ken.
Hey, I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, and I did ask some people from Avangrid to attend this meeting. I guess let me give you a couple of responses to what I just heard, because I think this all makes good sense. First of all, from Avangrid's perspective, right, we've got wind and solar out east, and we do not have any near-term plans for battery storage out there. That said, you guys are correct in that the large-scale battery storage would find itself close to a substation, right? So, for instance, Scott, you pointed out that Lund Hill's initial application had a battery storage site next to the substation. During that permit, we took that out. So right now there is no permit for battery storage at Lund Hill, and we're not requesting it at Bluebird either for those two projects. So I guess for us, if we were to pursue battery storage out there, yeah, we would love that the county got more comfortable with the fire risk and the permitting risk associated with storage. So that's that. I'll just give you that. We'll count the Klickitat County Avangrid perspective. The other thing else they probably is we are working on battery storage sites in other states. By the way, somebody mentioned California. So one of the first ones we're going to be looking at is in California. So we are in the process of learning more about installing, contracting, constructing, operating, and maintaining battery storage. But even, I hate to say it, but even Avangrid has something to learn. So in some respects, Scott, I wish we had more experts that we could roll out and assist. But I think you guys are right to go, and I'm happy to help you find experts, or if you want feedback on people. But in general, yeah, I think having your own consultant and own opinions on this. And by the way, and you can find some really good examples of what permitting jurisdictions are doing in California. So the other thing I would say is when it comes to and this is a Northwest comment, we have one of the biggest batteries in the country in the Northwest, and it's called the Columbia River, dams, power system. 60% of the electricity in the Northwest is from the Columbia River, and it's got a natural capacity and storage capability. Now it's limited, but let's just say the value of storage or capacity in California, Arizona, and other jurisdictions that don't have that kind of storage capacity, it's more valuable. And so that's why you're seeing it in places like California, before you see it here. The other comment I would make is you're also likely to see storage happening closer to the load. So closer, say in, substations near in, Portland or places like that, you're seeing some battery storage being installed there. So you might find some examples of permitting, permitting issues or permitting requirements in those areas. I think that's all I had for you guys. But again, I totally support you guys going after this and getting in front of this. Makes perfect sense.
Thanks, Ken. I guess when you have the spokesman from the energy company saying they don't know that much about it, I'd really like to know more about it before we send it to the planning commission, who I guarantee you knows less than that man that just spoke. Hence the reason I'm saying let's get a consultant, let's work with some experts, let's get some of these people that may be in the know and set up some tracks on this train before we send it to the planning commission. Because to tell you the truth, with the solar moratorium, I had high hopes that they would work through the process and come up with population density criteria, work through all of that. And they just chose to ban it. It's easier. We still don't have any population density criteria in this county for any other projects located anywhere else. So I would like to work through the process so that we can get some data for other things and other projects. And that's why I'm saying I would like to put some wheels on this before we send it to the planning commission, because I don't want just an all-out ban everywhere, because that might not be the answer. And next thing you know, they ban batteries everywhere, and tomorrow they come out with a gold-plated Nikon battery that has no risk of fire ever, and they're banned because of fire. And it's like, well, that makes no sense. We probably should know what we're doing before we pass it.
Anybody else?
I would just say that from a policy perspective, everybody's heard it for the last almost 4 years from me, that moratoriums are usually put in place when there's been a change in a state law or a change that necessitates a change in codes, not because you want to. And so that for that purpose, moratoriums are fine when you have like water right issues or a situation in which it's outside the control. It really comes down to private property rights for me. If someone wants to come in and go through the conditional use permit process and jump through all the hoops that we create or FSEC creates for them, because we all know if we put a moratorium on, they're just going to go through FSEC, and FSEC, as we found, will determine that it is consistent with land use laws based on what they've done in the past. So I don't know if the moratorium is the appropriate way, but I am in favor of starting the process and hiring a consultant and doing all that.
Well, I would say that I do believe the moratorium is the appropriate way, because the moratorium is the initial phase of a land use potential change. And maybe if we would have started this 3 years ago, we might be prepared now. But now that the companies are actually shopping, and it takes us 6 months to a year to come up with whatever this is, next thing you know, there's 5 permits drop. There's absolutely nothing you can do, just like we've learned with Benton County that did their moratorium the day after the permit dropped. It means a moratorium doesn't mean anything. Unfortunately, at this point, I think you do have to do a moratorium to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the general public until this county can get around to updating outdated codes that it has chosen not to update in the previous however many years.
Well, I think there is sensibility in the moratorium, in that talking to our partner, Yakima County, they have put a moratorium in place, which Scott has a copy of their moratorium. Something that we can look at, but we may change some of the language in that based off of our conversations today. But that's okay. It's okay. It's there and it's on the internet. We can get you a copy if anybody wants a copy of it. But I think they saw sensibility and a starting point of saying, put the brakes on and let's figure out what to do with this. And I would be in favor of crafting a moratorium and moving forward with the consultant to give us an update and tell us a direction. And then at some point, work with planning commission.
Right. So just to clarify, and thank you for that. I'm not going to jump to conclusions, but based off testimony here today, there's only 2 of us that believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that a moratorium is a proper use for this issue. That we need to make sure that between those that might feel in favor of a moratorium, that the wording is correct. And I'm just telling you, for me, I need the wording to say the consultant is working with planning and the Board of Commissioners until the further time that the Board of Commissioners sees fit to turn the project over to planning commission, because I don't want it going there before I feel it's ready.
And I would just mention again that there's already been multiple court decisions that have been relied upon that say moratorium is not a land use decision. And that is what they've used, and they've used it in this county for their rationale. So I don't think a moratorium is the appropriate decision of what you're trying to get to if that is your goal. There's something else that needs to be crafted.
What would you suggest that something else would be?
You would need to go through the process to actually change the land use code. And that is what the courts have already determined. That's the same thing I said at the beginning of 2022. And that is exactly what FSEC said in their written on a project in this county, that the moratorium did not have standing as land use code. So you actually need to change the land code.
So I'm going to stand by my decision. I have a differing opinion from Mr. Anderson on that moratorium and its weight. And I do believe we have to have something in place that allows us to define it and let us work forward.
I would agree that a moratorium has different weight, but I would also argue that its weight in any court is based off how hard it's actually defended. And in this county, that's hasn't shown to be very hard. So I do agree that I don't believe the moratorium in this county really matters. But us not doing it is political malfeasance. I can't control what other people do with their job, but I can control what I do with mine, and I would be in favor of the moratorium.
That's the question. Mr. Anderson, I was wondering with the proposal to change the code is a more effective method. Were you thinking, because I didn't know if you meant to go through the whole process of all the studies, everything, and then change code in a year, or if you meant a quick change to basically ban it within the code and then go back and look at it?
It's called interim zoning.
Okay. That's what I was wondering.
And that is the appropriate way to do it, because a moratorium, you can only stop us from accepting applications. That does not change it from going through FSEC or the state agencies.
Could you not do both moratorium and interim
If
zoning?
you wanted to put it together, you could.
So that's my point. So we could do the interim zoning, outlaw it altogether, countywide, change the code in the county right now today, and then work on unrestricting it through the consultant in areas where it might be okay, or they're using water as a battery, which I'm not worried about water catching on fire. That kind of a scenario. So I think Jake is right. We could do it both ways, and we probably should do it both ways. Cover the bases.
I would be comfortable if we did it both ways.
I guess I'm fine with both ways, but I don't know how. No, I'm going to hold that remark just because if somebody challenges the interim zoning ordinance, they might use the remark I was just about to make to undermine it. So I won't make.
So what do we need? Do we need just direction to staff?
I actually, one of the Board of Commissioners can make a motion on this, or you can direct staff. On the solar, I brought forth a moratorium quickly because I knew there was a potential for a permit to be dropped quickly. On this, I do not think the planning department is going to get a permit application in the next week. I just don't. Now I could be wrong and screw the whole county if I'm wrong. But I think we are safe enough that if we want to direct staff to come up with some kind of a resolution, an interim zoning ordinance wording change, and bring it back to us for potential approval next week and or recommended changes, I think we're safe enough to go that route My personal take.
I'm comfortable with that, but do you have comment?
I think it's only appropriate to have staff bring forward their recommendation for language before we try to adopt anything in any meeting.
Okay.
I have one more question. I don't know, and this isn't an insult to those listening, they know that. Was the Mr. Ken from the project invited to attend? Or are we gonna have a time for citizens too? Because if we allow projects on and citizens not, they're probably gonna get some backlash, but backlash will be on the chair. So I'm just trying to help you along to see what you want to do there.
We did invite because of the expertise in the background. We were.
I'm fine with it. I'm just
Okay.
saying if you don't allow some citizen comment too, you might get some backlash.
And I think when we did this workshop, we informed the citizen that it was workshop, so they wouldn't be public comment accepted, but they could write in. And we did receive some comments that are on record. And they were all pro
stopping. Yeah, I read the one this morning. I don't know if you saw it. I actually have it on my
computer.
I was going to share it. They have footage of the South Korean fire actually starting. And I was thinking it was a big, like this thing. It was the little cells. And it was just these little cases of cells. And all of a sudden the smoke started popping. And they're trying to move these little cases of cells. And these things are just blowing up willy-nilly. All the little ones that just go on your phone. We're not even talking a shipping container full. But anyway, that video is linked on that article to watch it. Killed like 23 people or something.
So we set policy. Does the board, speaking about the little phones, the little batteries, one option that is, it's not battery storage for solely industrial purposes. You can also have someone come in with a permit in order to build a warehouse to store batteries. And so you're talking about large amounts of energy that's being placed within a industrial zone that's right next to, could be another school or prison or anything else. So you need to think about, are you going to do that? You're also going to see a lot of this gigawatts of power is not going to be industrial scale on the grid. It's going to be at each individual's house. And you're already seeing that a lot. And is the board wanting to create direction on that? Because you could have almost, multiple kilowatts of battery storage on each house. And is that something you want to go to?
Well, yes and no. So when I first brought this up, I brought it up as battery storage because there are recyclers that were hauling in truckloads of batteries in different communities to just do nothing but recycle, but they didn't really have a recycling system set up. So they were just acquiring stuff with the plans to recycle it later. And anybody that knows this county knows we've done that before with other things. And so I do worry about people bringing in dead or derelict batteries and what happens to them at end of life. I want to get to that answer through this process to make sure they're not going in our landfill. I do think we need to address our county code for people that have a high percentage of battery storage on their solar panels. If I had solar panels on my house, I would have a large section of batteries there to give me off-grid capability. But I do believe that's not a recommended for those people that, oh, we're going to ban batteries so you can't have batteries on your solar panels. We just need to know that the local fire department has the ability to put out a giant battery bank in their garage. And so this is more of an educational for me on that matter, but I do think the small scale stuff needs addressed too. But I think it's all battery, all storage, depending on, but I don't want to put an interim zoning change to tell people they can't put battery storage on their in-home solar project. So I do need a capacity, which I want to say, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I thought I had 1 kilowatt or something on my moratoriums, but I do think there needs to be a factor, whether you want to put it as is some kind of wattage as a factor or some kind of tonnage is a factor, there needs to be a number so the smaller scale people can continue on while we work through this process, and we just kind of stop the huge guy until we can figure it out. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I think it'll be multi-phase. And I think we'll have to start with the large and then work our way through you guys, you three, probably for public safety, for the houses that are now adding all these big systems.
So are you at planning okay with just the verbal recommendation to work on some languaging and bring it back to us? Or are you requesting, we just get a verbal to tell you that? Or are you asking for a motion in a second?
No, it sounds like you're not planning to do the moratorium today, so I'd be glad to come back to you with, I'd like to look at the solar moratorium to see the format, I assume is resolution. Okay. So I'll work on that, bring it back to you. Should be able to, they're due Thursday, is that right? At noon, is that the Thursday's news Wednesday at noon, okay, tomorrow. Okay. Sweet. The deadline to get something to you for next meeting, if you're looking at, because you're looking at next meeting, right? Having the moratorium.
If you could get it in by tomorrow, fine. If you can't, bring it.
Okay. So do you mean next week for the following week, or?
Bring it up Tuesday, and we'll look at it.
Okay.
Like it
Okay, sounds good.
I'm not gonna give you 24 hours to do something.
That'd be more helpful. So that will be only the moratorium. The interim zoning looks like it'll be a little bit more, because I think that does have to go through the planning commission first. So be a two-step process.
And we can do it as two resolutions if need be,
Okay.
just running in parallel. But
I think I would prefer them to go together, because I remember, you know, when we passed the prohibited uses and actually changed the county code, part of that was the direction that the planning commission would continue to work on solar and battery and all that. And having this go through the planning commission, I think is a good idea with the interim zoning controls, which is requires all, you know, you have to advertise it. You have to let everybody know it's a process. It's not the full process with full SEPA and everything else. But it is the appropriate process if you're actually for the goal that you've set.
You know, for clarity, I thought we were talking about doing the moratorium so that we had time then to do the interim zoning, like as you described.
I will say again, the moratorium has no impact. The moratorium can only stop you from accepting an application.
Okay.
That's all it really can do.
And I would say moratorium, yes, both of them as fast as they can be done. I don't know that the interim zoning through the planning commission is going to take a bazillion years of studies and all the documentations or whatever, if they know the end result is this is gonna end up coming back before them for a more thorough analysis. We just need an emergency declaration now, you might call it, so that we can put the hiatus on it until we can get the consultant and get all the information to present to them in the next 6 months to actually unwind what the bell they've rang, and in say where it's okay or what's okay. But we need something, an emergency action taking place now to make sure we don't get permits dropping next month, because now they know we're on this and they're like, oh crap. So they go suck up another 5 acres of farmland up here and drop a permit, even though they know they're not ready. They'll drop a permit and then change the permit later or tweak it or extend it a couple years or whatever, but they'll make sure the permit's in before the zoning changes it. So I'm kind of in a hurry for some kind of an emergency action at this point now that it's public knowledge.
Lori, not to put you on the spot, but I will. Do you think, is there a reason you think we can't get that before them? Just timeline of notifications and things and the paper for the July 15th meeting?
To the planning commission.
Yeah.
We could get, I think the big question is the capacity, or what it, you know, like the solar was large scale, 1 acre or larger. We need some sort of.
That's what I said, you need a threshold.
Yeah, and to define that might take us to July 15th. I mean,
Roll of dice.
I would say you need to contact KVH, because I would usually say, oh, 1 megawatt would be a good number, but KVH and running KVH, they might need, 2 to 3 megawatts. And do you really want to stop them from, their projects in which they've got grant funding and everything else to do? So you need to reach out to some of the other users that are not just residential, but are larger scale anchor tenants.
And then I think the other concern is planning commissions in the middle of critical areas. That was put off 2.5 years ago, because then we went to finish the shorelines, then we went to do the solar moratorium. Are we now suddenly putting critical areas off again?
I'm hopefully not. I'm hoping the planning commission can move this as an emergency action without a whole lot of time spent on it, knowing that they're gonna get it back for a full and thorough review that might take them 6 months to a year here in the next few months after critical areas.
Okay.
They're gonna get it back, and they're gonna get all the time in the world they need on it. And that's why I don't want them diving into all the time they need on it now, because it's gonna backburner the other project that I'm kind of tired of backburner. So let's let them keep going with that one, and let's hope they'll just take an emergency action on this and then deal with it later.
And so for next week, the moratorium is crucial, and talking to the consultant probably about that interim zoning and how to present that and how to move that quickly through planning commission. Yeah. And also for the watts or gigabytes or whatever it is, the Yakima has an amount set in it, I believe.
Yeah.
And their rationale might help you.
But I would reach out to stakeholders, look at Yakima, figure out whatever that number threshold that we're not cutting off the little guy.
Yeah. Hey, Dan, this is Ken from Alvin Grid. You may want to consult KPUT too, right? This is,
okay.
If it's low voltage, and that's, by the way, that's one way to do this too, is the voltage that you interconnect at. But I don't think KPUT has any plans, right, to put storage on their system, but you may want to consult with them before you go too far. But they're low voltage, right? I would say under 69 kV. And then for the big larger industrial, it's going to be 115 kV or larger.
Thanks,
So
Ken.
that, I don't know, maybe
my biggest worry is not the people that are going to connect to the grid. My biggest worry is people packing batteries in here from old iPhones in some warehouse somewhere that never plan on hooking them to a grid. That's my biggest worry. So I want to make sure those guys are covered. That plan on bringing them here because eventually there'll be some way to recycle them, and then they're just
you're kidding.
They catch fire. So we need to figure out the KV, but we need to figure out for those guys that are never planning on hooking it to a grid.
Like a warehouse full of old batteries?
Exactly. That's my biggest worry on this one, because those are the ones that tend to pop off because they've been damaged physically, and one of them pops and then the whole warehouse pops. So whatever our wordage is with KV or tonnage or whatever, we need to make sure we incorporate.
What I just said doesn't address that at all.
Right.
So
that's what I said. You can use 2 different wordages is fine and use that one, but you got to figure out something for the recycling side of it. Because I also worry that those people make a ton of money, put them in a warehouse here, realize they can't recycle them, declare bankruptcy, leave it to the county to clean up their mess.
So are you good? Any more questions?
Yeah, that threw a little twist.
I think your page
That
is
threw a little
full.
twist in it. It's a different kind of battery storage. It's a drawer for a battery. Okay. I think we're good.
Anybody else have anything, comment? Good. Thank you for spending your time. Awesome. It's for your input.
Perfect time because it's only like that much water.
There's a commissioner from Pallets County that I'm on a board with. And every time we have a meeting, they give him water. If he has water, he keeps going. So now they don't give him water.
Oh.
Thank you. Sorry, Arn.
No, these were,
Yeah. No, those are nice ones.
I know, right?
What a gift.
I sent Jake back and I think they were going for them.
Okay.
Do you want to officially close the meeting or go back to our chairs for now and have some discussion about whatever? All right, let's go back to our chairs.
We'll have to perfect our tables for workshops.
Yeah, that wasn't a round table. That was a tea table.
Yeah, that was a messed up table. Well, Leanne and I remembered it at like 5 minutes before the meeting. It's like, oh,
I think it almost would have been, the microphone's the problem.
Yes.
You
I wonder if we can add some out there.
know how much those things cost?
No, I meant like move one of ours down there for a little while.
Drag cables.
Okay, where are we at? Thank you so much, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah,
I do have an update on insurance if you want it.
sure.
I told Casey when I got done talking to her that I was not going to come back and speak for her because I will probably get something wrong because she spoke in technical jungo. And she absolutely laughed at me because I think she knows that that's exactly what would have happened. So we have, she has stated that she will work on some stuff and bring it during their next update next month, just to kind of give us an idea on choices and ideas. And then the board can decide if they want to do anything when she gives us an update. And if you want more than that, she happens to be in the room. So I'm not passing on what she said.
Do you need to come to the table? Okay. Thank you. That's it?
Yeah, no,
We'll wait
that's
for an
it.
update. Uh-oh.
Jail update.
Oh, jail update. Forgot about jail update. That was supposed to be at 1:30. What pants? She's got close enough. Thank you, Casey. Hope I spoke the correct way.
First, I think the topic you just covered is extremely important. You have an amazing array of talent around that table. I'm just thankful I'm not one of them. So.
The director of solar moratorium
Yeah.
operations.
Yeah, no. I'll leave that up to the people that know. So the weekly jail update, sticking to the format we've used in the past. So the Department of Corrections, for those who weren't online this morning or in attendance, the commissioners voted to approve the resolution as revised, creating a new Department of Corrections. The consultant, Mr. Briones, was on site for 2 days last week to start the operations review of the jail. I anticipate that'll continue through July. And he at least initially indicated he would issue reports throughout the process. Just to remind you that he did mention when he started and mentioned again to me last week that should he find anything that he finds critical in terms of safety or wellness, that he won't wait for the conclusion of the report. He would issue that to us right away so we could take corrective action. In terms of the supplemental budget, again, it wouldn't be a supplemental budget moving the funds to the Department of Corrections. It would be a transfer, which would occur at the time of a supplemental budget. So kind of the timing there, there's short-term and long-term. So in a perfect world, we would time the transition of the jail from the sheriff's office to the commissioners with a supplemental. So we don't have to have a special supplemental to put the transfer as part of that. And at the same time, very soon we'll be in the budget process, building a budget for the new department to be effective January 1st. So there's multiple moving pieces to that Jen and the Finance Committee will be helping us with. And then in the interim position, as a courtesy, the recruitment firm that I have used throughout the years, sent out notice to some people they thought might be interested, and I haven't heard back from them yet. I was also contacted by a gentleman associated with the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs, and he had heard that there may be a posting. I think he was thinking more in terms of the long-term position, but I communicated to him that if he knows of anybody, to have him contact me, and I'm going to reach back out to him and see if we can post this contract transition position on that web page or their web page. We'll definitely use them when we go to create the permanent position when we get to that point. And then I'm going to reach back to Prothman to see what they could do in terms of a cost for posting this temporary position.
I guess this brings up my worry with the directive of the board to go with an interim position before you go with a permanent position. I wanted it to be able to have both, because we might find a unicorn that wants a job today that we tell him the job in 3 months or whenever we affirm or take control of the jail. If we tell him it's going to be 6 months, the unicorn could fly away. I don't want to miss out on a potential unicorn because, oh, sorry, we're not hiring today. We're only going to get an intern person today. And that's kind of my worry. I mean, I'm not saying this guy was a unicorn.
Well, I think what
I would like to be able, if we do find a unicorn permanent person, to say, okay, let's give up on the intern thing and let's just take that guy or girl.
It's challenging. I understand what you're saying. What I've told people, what I've told the recruitment firm and the association and people in the Oregon and Washington that I've talked to is that, if we find somebody who's willing to be that interim, work on the transition, they would be allowed to apply for the job. So there wouldn't necessarily be a break if they applied and were selected. So, because I suspect you will find some people who will apply for the interim in hopes of being selected as the permanent. Everybody's telling me it's going to be challenging to find, just to be blunt, folks probably aren't going to leave a good job they have now
to be an intern,
or to take on this until it's a little bit farther down the tracks, using the train analogy. So I think it's going to be problematic, but we continue. That was in the motion. That was the direction.
And that's my worry. I'm not saying we won't be able to find an intern, but I think the interim we're probably going to get stuck with some kind of a consulting firm being the intern, because I just, unless we find some person wanting to come out of retirement for 3 months and then come rent a summer home in Goldendale for 3 months, uproot their family for 3 months, that's a reach. You're far more likely to find somebody willing to do that for a permanent scenario over a 3 month scenario.
The potential also exists. While we're continuing to look for an intern to work on the transition, we are working on the transition. We did create the Department of Corrections today. You did. We continue to move forward with the budget. We continue to move forward with the review. I suspect that review will provide a lot of feedback, a lot of guidance for whoever takes that. I mean, I guess it does exist, the potential that you transition it under the commissioners and we go ahead and search for that permanent position. And kind of just are moving past the transition person. But at this point, we're still looking for both. Well, we're initially looking for the transition. We don't know what to post for yet. We don't even know what we call somebody. Is it a jail commander? Is it the community corrections director? I mean, we have a lot of.
Well, I will ask for a favor then. I will ask if you get a phone call from someone that you think might be the unicorn for the permanent position that has no interest in the temporary position, you at least come back and advise this board that we could potentially be missing out on the unicorn and that we may want to think re-strategize. That's all I'm asking.
Of course I would. Yes.
And I think that at least the initial review is going to be crucial in our direction too.
Mr. Briones did offer in our initial conversations then he could help put that transition plan together based when he concludes his report. He could help us put that into a working document to move forward and help us get some of the information that we would get from a transition plan, you know, the who, what, where, and how, all of which we're working currently. So each week we continue to move forward.
Side question, Mr. Anderson, did you receive the email from Carmen about the whatever CJT board or something?
Yeah, it came in.
Isn't that usually the chair that sits on that? I tried to remember that. I think I sat on it the one time it was here last year when I was chair, but I'm trying to remember if this is something that we normally appoint to, or if this is something we have to form for our new manager interim. And are one of us going to sit on that in the transition, or what are we going to do about that?
I sent that to you, Rob. Did you get it?
No, he, Commissioner
I mentioned it,
Christopher
so-
mentioned
Okay.
it, so I haven't seen it yet.
I don't remember ever seeing this group from WSP. Do you remember sitting on? I never sat on anything with WSP. I don't think.
I
we
sat
have
on
a
one
lot
or
of-
two weird things like that, but I don't know if it was a regular deal or if it's not.
Sounded like they had sent a sheriff before to me when I looked at that. I just read it real quick because I got it during session.
Well, and technically it wouldn't be us until we assume power anyway, I would think, but it sounded like a good time to bring
But
that up.
it's
So if the jail conversation wasn't going on, would the commissioners be asked to attend that?
No,
I
but
don't
that's
think
just it. We don't have any,
Gotcha, I got you.
we haven't assumed any authority over the jail officially, so I don't know why we even would be attending that
And
until we did assume authority.
for this season that we're in, is it something that if we miss that, if nobody goes to it, is that really going to be a
For
loss?
not one of us go to it.
Or nobody from over there? I mean, if we just don't move forward.
I think
with-
they have to. I
one
think
of them
it's
will
I think it's a inmate safety
Oh, okay.
kind of a thing. So I would say I think they need to continue doing what they're doing since they are currently the ones in charge over there. And we wouldn't assume any of that duty, and we would replace them in that duty once we officially assume control. That's my interpretation of that. I just didn't know where you guys stood on that, and we may not get
What's how it
time by
goes.
next week.
Currently under the supervision of
Yeah,
the sheriff. So
and not under us.
Okay.
Right. Okay, good. Answered. Question answered. I'm done.
there you go. I don't anticipate an update next Tuesday, so they'll resume the following that.
Is our consultant guy eventually going to plan regular every 2 week, 3 week, 1 month, whatever sits in front of us, either here on Zoom? Have you reached out to even bring that up to see
Yeah,
what
I
he
did
felt
talk
like?
to him. Normally you would have that with the stakeholders before he started, but he got started last week and it was holiday.
Right.
And so what I've asked him now is, he indicated he is willing, we just have to find a time more likely to zoom in and
Yeah, Zoom's
and
fine.
talk to the commissioners. It may not be what he originally planned was, hey, this is what's coming, because by that point he'll be halfway through or maybe towards the end. But to address in a public setting.
What has happened and what's going to happen, and then and if he can just zoom in on a Tuesday, or if he needs a Thursday, we can do a Thursday afternoon workshop or something.
That's
I know
easier for
whatever
him.
works for him.
He still is a jail commander, and he has a sheriff that he works for who's been apparently very flexible and supportive of him assisting other counties. So I think Zoom would be his best option.
That's perfect.
Unless he's going to be down here on a Tuesday.
Or something anyway, right?
Anyway, so.
I just think it would be nice for the public to see the face that's doing the work.
That concludes my report, unless there's any questions. Okay.
That's good work.
I don't have any. Thank you. Good report.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else?
The other thing I had was the allowing pictures on Zoom question that was brought up to me, but I don't know if we actually want to have that discussion or advise staff to, when staff gets back, to, or now, or how we want to go about that. Is she on vacation? Is she on vacation?
She's been sick. She's sick.
Oh, no. So no, I guess my concern is the same concern I have with public speaking. When somebody public speaks, we can't limit what they say to some extent unless we limit it for everybody. So you always have the fear or threat that they get up there and start spouting off some hate speech. The same thing when you have a camera. There was a picture of somebody's house on the Zoom earlier. And for all you know, they're posting a banner of some kind of hate speech. And if you decide to not allow that person to do that, but you let the other person show their personal photo of themselves, now you're limiting who can and you're risking liability. So you either need to let everybody show a picture or nobody show a picture. I'm trying to stop a potential, kind of like the First Amendment audits, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with. I'm waiting for us to get sued because of that, because we've had no First Amendment audit training in this county, even though I've requested it multiple times. So I think it's something that eventually we're going to see a lawsuit, and I don't know if you want to get in front of it before you see the lawsuit or after you see the lawsuit.
So I have a question. We see them log into Zoom all kinds of different ways, and some with names, some with phone numbers. I really like it when their name's on there so we know who they are.
I don't, but that one is the hard one. That one is we can ask them for their name and their location, but we can't force them to give it to us. But we can regulate whether we allow the pictures on the Zoom screen, or if our Zoom is locked at we can only see this right here. We can't see anything else. We can hear you. We can see your hand raised, but we can't see your screen and we can't see you. That way, if they're holding up some kind of banners or making some gestures or dancing around naked, we're not limiting what they're doing. We're already taking the risk with allowing the speech, but now you're allowing the physical form as well. So I'm just trying to limit potential risks. Other counties don't allow the picture part of it, is my point. So if we want to discuss this more, we might wait till next week. Maybe direct staff to check with other counties and see what they do. And that would be my recommendation.
And how they can manage it.
The easiest thing to do is just not pin them when they're talking, and then all you would see is this.
Right, but that's
you also can't decide and change. I mean, you can rename them if something is very offensive up there, but they can choose their own names.
Right, and that's what I was kind of saying to Lori. But we can pin what we want to pin, so we're not seeing their pictures if we choose to do that as a policy. So it sounds like we're giving staff directive to maybe look into the idea of what other counties allow, and or how hard it would be to not let us see their picture. In other words, you pin this and we don't see them anymore. Problem solved. So maybe if we just bring it up next week and see where we've come. Do we have any idea on the clock? Have we ever figured the clock out? It's been a month trying to get a clock.
Block off. Cut off our Zoom.
Oh, so it would cut off somebody's face. The other option that is, to me, a more viable option, if the board is, we're talking about a clock because people want to know, oh, when was that discussion on Zoom so I can go look. And when you go look at Zoom, it starts from the minute it started till the minute it ended. It doesn't tell you what time it happened. So I say, oh, it happened at 1:30. Well, you have no relation to find on Zoom where 1:30 is. So what I want to do is put a clock. And in my opinion, you can pull the clock off that wall, put it on that wall.
Or put it down here on the podium.
Or on the face of this thing. So I can say it happened at 1:30. Now you can fast forward until that clock says 1:30 and find exactly when the conversation took place. So that's an easy option too, if we can agree to move the clock. I don't care if it's
Or
down
leave
here
the
or up
clock
there.
there and get us another one for Dad.
Second clock, 2 clocks.
Yeah, because I like.
You
seeing
paying
the
for it?
clock.
I'm looking after taxpayer money. We only need 1 clock.
So people can see the screen.
Do I need 3-foot letters?
Yeah, that's
okay.
pretty much it.
So I think we're okay with getting a second clock. You want it down here then?
Matter to me, wherever you'd like to put it.
It doesn't matter to me either,
Like it
either
down
place,
here.
below the chair's chair. Okay, no, that works with me. Okay. Easy fix.
When you make us small, can you still see it? When we're, what do we look like when we're small?
If you put somebody else's as a split
Oh,
screen.
yeah.
Yeah, you can still see it pretty good.
Yeah, either place.
Yeah, either place works. I think the desk has
Be
more
easier to
reflection than that, but yes, this will be more easy to attach it and keep it falling off than
Yeah, I
that.
don't know what.
So, okay,
Okay.
good answer.
Jake, anything else for the day? Yep.
I know I have little any little stupid projects, but they mean something to
I've
me,
done
so
that
I appreciate it.
research, so I appreciate it. I appreciate the clock.
I have nothing else, other than we should probably remind Commissioner Anderson if he's gonna make a motion that we might all be attending a WASAC meeting tomorrow. Okay, I was just reminding you because you're usually the closing motion guy.
Mike?
Madam Chair, I would make a motion to adjourn the regular meeting, noting that all three members will be present at the
Oh,
WASAC meeting
minute.
tomorrow.
You're okay? Yes. Do you need a minute? Sorry, Jake.
All right, I'm not gonna second his motion, then it'll
Okay.
die.
I'm sorry, I should have recognized you.
Bad chair.
I saw you sitting back there. I thought you were sightseeing.
Sometimes I just am.
Not
staying
in here.
informed. But based on this morning's conversation with the public about banning fireworks, great answers on what we have done in the past, and I've already been considering doing this year, is putting out a media release and social media campaign that urges the residents and the visitors of our county to refrain from fireworks and outlining, as we've done in the past, what the consequences of using fireworks if they start a fire, and they are legally liable and can be charged for all those suppression activities and so on. And then firework safety as the last part of that message. So unless you have any objections, that's what I'm intending to do and already had been.
Do you have time for the newspaper to get it in the newspaper?
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Yep.
Now, does he have budget funding to put it in the newspapers? A whole other matter.
Media release.
Media
we
release.
don't pay for those.
Okay,
They
good
pick
enough.
them up.
Yeah, no, I think education is the correct way because I still look at it, you ban it, they're gonna do it anyway. And you can ban speeding and everybody in this room still speeds, so.
It becomes an enforcement problem.
Yeah, it becomes the cops called every 2 minutes and they can't respond. 911 getting overloaded during 4th of July, where somebody having a heart attack gets a busy signal. I worry about that. And I worry about Bobo leaving the city because he's afraid to light fireworks and running up into the Simcoes and catching half the woods on fire. So between 911 getting overloaded and somebody that's got to shoot off his Roman candles, those far more worry me than the accidental fire that does sometimes happen.
Yes, and those conditions already exist, just the normal call volume on the 4th of July and the days leading up to and after, because people don't limit it just to that evening. We usually have a third person in the
See,
center.
that's proof enough. We have code already on when you can light fireworks and when you can't.
Right.
And how often do they follow that?
Exactly.
So.
Yep, there's not enough 911 call takers or enough law enforcement officers to respond to the calls we already get.
Yep.
Thank you, Jeff.
Good point. Good argument there. You added a few to my list.
Want to try again?
I made the motion if Dan wants to second it.
Oh, so we just kind of let it sit there for a while. All right, I'll second that sat there motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Good meeting today.
Next week.